In our study session, the City Council voted 3-2 to fly the police position without an actual consultant. So that will be through the various means that we've conducted in the past. So reporting that particular section out, and that's the only thing that I have at this point.
Mayor.
And yes, and the vote was at 3-2 with having Councilmember Cruz Baca and Councilmember Susan Rubio dissenting on the vote. Yes. Yes.
I'd like to explain yes, we are late and we apologize, but I also want to explain to the people how the vote was 3-2. We were standing up, getting ready to come down here when the decision was made to go ahead and not hire a consultant for the chief position and to fly it like it's been flown before. It wasn't so much the $25,000 that we were going to spend, but I felt that we needed to look at the salary as well, because that is really something that we need to look at. We have questioned the salary of the previous chief, and that was extremely important to myself, and I'm hoping that it was also the same thing for Councilmember Rubio. And we really thought that we should give it some consideration and bring it to the next meeting. Salaries are extremely important in expenditures as far as I'm concerned, because it's the taxpayers' money, not our money. And we were outvoted for that, and that's why we're late.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Susan Rubio.
I think that's incorrect. I did not vote for it. On the way out, as I grabbed my purse, decided to vote on something, and I told the mayor for the record, I will not vote on something that's so important on the way out. So I told him I was going to excuse myself. Previous council meetings, we've been accused of voting for something because we walk out and they vote for something that we don't know. So for the record, I didn't vote. I walked out.
All right. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to have a roll call. So, City
Mayor, just for some clarification, really quickly.
Sure.
The vote was held in closed session. Everybody was aware what the vote was. And also want to say we also voted to have it depends on qualifications, so that's why we did not discuss the salary portion of it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor,
Yes,
but there's this illusion that we had a discussion. There was no discussion. I grabbed my purse, the meeting was over, we were running late, and as we're walking out, they decided to vote on an item, and I said, absolutely not. I will not vote on something on the way out. In order to take these important votes, we need to be sitting down with documentation and with a full discussion. This was not a discussion. We were on our way out. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. All right, at this point, Madam City, yes, Councilmember, Vice Mayor Monica Garcia.
Thank you. I think that the question was, do we want to spend $25,000 on a consultant to find our next chief of police? And the majority vote was that we do not want to do that. We'll go with what we've done historically, which is posting the position through your typical, usual channels, and then getting the response, because $25,000 is a hefty bill for our residents to foot when we've been able to obtain, quality candidates in the past with the channels that we've used, and with other cities use those channels as well. So the vote, in my response and my opinion, is whether we wanted to spend the $25,000. My vote is no.
All right, so thank you very much, Vice Mayor Monica Garcia. At this point, our city treasurer, and before I go, Alejandra Avila is out at a funeral, and we also want to close on behalf of Mrs. Plata, the wife of Mr. Plata, who's been here on many occasions addressing the city council. Our deepest condolences goes out to her as well. A beautiful family who's been in Baldwin Park for many, many years. All right.
Mayor,
Yes.
I would also at this time, not only was she a longtime resident, but she was also a volunteer at Sierra Vista High School and some of the other schools here in Baldwin Park. Yes, they were a longtime resident, very active at St. John's Church. Both she and her husband, and our condolences go out to the entire family, the Plata family. And also, I would like to close on behalf of Henry Castruita, a longtime friend that passed away also about the same time that Mrs. Plata did. He had been suffering with heart problems for a while, but Henry can be known for being an incredible musician. He was a drummer that I worked with when I was in high school, but he and his brother, they came from the little area, if any of you are familiar with the Medina Court area of El Monte. They came from there, and his older brother, Richard, served during World War II, and they rose to be famous and very incredible musicians and wonderful people that helped out the community. So my condolences to the Castruita family.
Thank you. And before I forget, I want to also close on behalf of Ricky Magdaleno, extremely popular individual in the city of Baldwin Park, born and raised here, a graduate from Baldwin Park High School. In 1992, he was a very high pro baseball draft pick of the Cincinnati Reds. He served as a role model and came back and taught for free, showing a lot of our youth. And again, if you go on his Facebook, this individual is extremely liked, and I'm glad that I had an opportunity to meet him. So our deepest condolences goes out to him and I'll say the hundreds of individuals that he touched throughout our community. Alrighty. So at this point, yes.
I'd also like to offer my condolences to the Magdaleno family. Mm-hmm. I went to school with Ricky, and I want to offer my condolences to his brothers. It's a surprise I was not aware that he passed away. So, a wonderful family. I mean, growing up very active, like you said, a role model in many ways, for young athletes in our community. And so just want to give my condolences as well to the Plata family. I went to school with one of their members. Actually, I was best friends in kindergarten with the niece of Mrs. Plata, and want to offer my condolences to the Plata family as well. Beautiful family, long-time Baldwin Park residents, and our deepest condolences and support is with them.
Thank you very much. All right.
Before we move over, if I may, thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind the residents that we have our 60th anniversary parade coming up this Saturday. So we want to make sure that all the community comes out. It's going to be at 9:45. And so everyone's welcome. It's going to be a really momentous occasion for all of us, 60th anniversary. So please come and join us. If anybody's listening at home, we would love to see the community celebrate together. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Susan Rubio. So at this point, we're going to have our city treasurer, Maria Contreras, lead us in the actual roll call. Thank you.
Councilmember Cruz Baca.
Here.
Councilmember Susan Rubio.
Present.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco. Mayor Pro Tem Monica Garcia.
Here.
Mayor Manuel Lozano.
Present. And then also I'll move I will move to excuse city clerk Alejandra Avila, and that is my motion. Second. Any objections? See none, so move. All right. So at this point, we are going to be moving over the presentation for the senior Javier and Edwin Navarro. Yes. Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot. Sorry about that. All right. He is? All right. Thank you, Councilman Cruz Baca. Pastor Jackson, if you could lead us in invocation, appreciate that. Thank you.
All of our right thing. Father God, please peace. Black lives matter. Also, in harmony and touch our schools. Our God, arsenic, all drugs that destroy our youth, break the. Therefore, Lord God, our city. Our fire department, put your hand on them. Also, Lord, we're in some terrible times. And our military, your hand Pray this in the name of the Lord.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. This point will face the flag. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. Thank you very much.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz Baca.
Yes, before we start, I would like to thank West Coast Arborist and our staff for the trees that we planted this couple weekends ago. There were 17 trees from what I understand, and at the Morgan Park, and I believe they took another 20 to Barnes, and altogether we had a grant for 105 trees. It was a wonderful event. However, I did have a concern. As I was approaching so that I could make the announcement, I saw Captain David Salcedo from the Inglewood Police Department talking to a group of students, and he was introducing himself as the new chief. And that concerned me. Once he saw me in the background, he changed and was explaining to them that it was going to be a process, that he wasn't the chief yet, but he was hoping he would be the chief, and he asked for my vote as well while I was standing out there behind the students. That concerns me, and tonight's vote even concerns me more because it seems that the $25,000, in order to make it a fair process, like we had said, a vetted process, that the three, Councilmember Pacheco, Vice Mayor Garcia, and you, Mayor, Mr. Salcedo made it very clear that he already knew who was going to vote for him. Obviously, it was not me because he was asking me for my vote. So I feel that either he should decline and pull himself out of the race as chief in all fairness. Otherwise, this is bordering in being illegal because it's obvious that the three of you discussed this, and it's not only in violation of the Brown Act, but this is in violation of being illegal process. And I do not want to be a part of it. I want to be sure that we have a vetted process, and that was exactly why we had said to spend the $25,000. Yes, it is $25,000, but now we don't have to spend it, so the taxpayers don't have to worry about it because the decision was already made behind closed doors. I'm very concerned. I want this matter looked into, City Attorney, because Mr. Salcedo should not be representing himself as the chief. I know that none of us could be out there representing ourselves as something we're not, because after all, that's illegal. And he did say that he was going to be the new chief. He has been at several occasions, which, hey, he can come as long as he wants. Baldwin Park is a family-oriented. But when he comes around and he comes to different events and he's introducing himself as already pretty close to having one foot in that chief's office, I'm concerned, and I want this looked into.
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to question your integrity because you are currently going through court, one, for forgery. Second, also laundering big money. And you know what I'm talking about, and you still have not shared that with the city council. When my brother has been arrested 3 times by the Baldwin Park Police Department, the first thing I do, I share it here with everyone. I come from a family of 7, made it clear when I first got elected, that if there's any immediate problems with my family, because I can't control them, I will share it, and I've always done that. Now, I'm going to question you on that. Now, he, along with 3 others, are currently touring Baldwin Park, and that I know for a fact. Now, it's interesting for you to say that. Let me remind you, when you got elected, you came in here. You fired the first Latina chief ever, a very popular individual in this town. You had no information whatsoever. I personally think you violated the Brown Act because you came in and you had your votes, you fired her. You fired the city manager at the same time. So please, don't play tricks on me. Your little cameras are on, and you are the #1 propaganda person. I will be at your court case because I think it's important. If you don't share that information with the general public, I will. And I'm going to invite the general public to be there. You committed forgery. You signed your sister's name on a 460 form. That is illegal. It is illegal, and the district attorney's office needs to know about that. Or let me just say it's been reported to the district attorney's office by your sister. Now, again, I question you because I personally think you are an expert at coming in here and fabricating information. So please don't. You know what you're saying right now? Will tell you outright. You are really being an unfair individual because you're setting the individual up for your little stories here. You're a dishonest individual.
Mayor, may I speak, please?
Yes, absolutely.
This really saddens me because
this sure does. Me
when
too.
when Ms. Cruz Baca started speaking, she started speaking about issues that pertain to the city, issues that affect the residents, issues that affect taxpayer monies. And when you go from speaking about city issues to talking about a personal lawsuit she has going on with her family, I think that really crosses the line. Let me just clarify. Unfortunately, Cruz's mother passed away a few years back, and as in many families, the mom left a lot of money behind. And so what happens is there's usually disagreements between brothers and sisters, and unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that, and that is an issue that they're dealing with privately in a court system, as they should, but that has no place in city governance. The chief of police does pertain to city business, and I think that is unfortunate that you're bringing her lawsuit with her siblings into this matter. That is inappropriate. They're two different things. And just because the sister makes allegations doesn't make it so. They're going through court, and once that court is settled, then we can come with the facts. But you cannot go based on allegations because they want her to sell property to get money. As you all know, we all have siblings, and money sometimes causes these, fractions between family members. Once again, Mayor, that is a personal, private matter. The chief of police has to do with city business.
Yeah.
I think that was inappropriate.
All right. Okay. Real quick, council member, and I'm glad you brought that up because you made me remember something. And I'm asking the city attorney right now. We have to bring the district attorney's office. You write this down. She has an illegal conversion in her home where she has people living in the back. She did indicate to an individual that the city would not do anything to her because the code enforcement was her friends. And I believe that's currently going on or was brought to the city and needs to be investigated. She is not above the law under any circumstances. And as mayor, I'm now going to sit here and allow any individual to do this when we literally have hundreds of residents that have been cited and have to comply with the law. She is not above the ordinance of the city of Baldwin Park. And I want a full report to all the council members since she is not sharing any of this information publicly.
Once again, Mayor, this goes back to the private lawsuit the family has going on. The reason they can't touch the properties right now, they're going through probate. Once again, when someone is deceased and something's left behind, sometimes it takes a little while to sort these things out, and that is going through probate. That is why things need to be settled in court before anything can be touched. That continues to be a private matter. And I believe there is documentation that show that they are going through court. In fact, you just mentioned it right now. They need to settle this before anything can be done to properties left by their family members. And so, again, it continues to be a personal matter. Thank you, Mayor.
Unfortunately, we are public officials. As public officials, we are to report out anything that obviously involves us as regardless of what privacy she may have out. I reported my brothers, and I didn't have to. And I reported based on the fact that for me, it's ethical to come up here and to state it, to place it on the record so that no one questions that.
Mayor, yes. I did mention the lawsuit about 2-3 council meetings ago. I did mention, if we want to check the minutes, I did say, because you had brought up personal allegations against me, and I did bring up about the lawsuit. The lawsuit is not a secret. Code enforcement visited me twice today. This morning, and at 5 o'clock, they were on the property talking to my brother, who my brother has said that you told him that he would not be cited because you thought it was okay. Now, I'm not going to continue. If anybody would like to discuss my lawsuit with my family, I am available anytime. However, I feel that this is a ploy so that you can forget what I said about Captain Salcedo being at the tree planting, posing as the new police chief. This is just a ploy to confuse you. Do not forget that. If anybody wants to talk about my personal life, hey, I got nothing to hide. I'll show you all the documents, and you're welcome to speak to my siblings as well. Not a secret. Come to the court hearing. Keep us company while you're there, along with Council Mayor Lozano. I guess he's got nothing else to do but to come to somebody else's lawsuits.
Well, there you go again. But you're not going to hide behind that closet. I'll tell you that right now. Okay, I'll end there.
Mayor.
Yes, Vice Mayor Monica Garcia.
I'd like to just make a statement because I was brought into this. I haven't made any decisions on chief of police. I haven't even taken up the matter. For you to suggest that behind the scenes we're making decisions, I think that's more of a reflection of your own experience, because that's what you've done. And I'll give an example that the mayor just mentioned. In December of 2013, in one council meeting, you, along with others, fired...
Mention the others.
Okay, you, along with others, fired, a number of executive level members here at the city, and then one by one brought in the replacements. And so what we are saying with the chief of police position that is now vacant is that it's a very legitimate process. And let me actually go back, because at the time that happened, I was asking that we go out for a competitive process. And the response back was, no, you had already chosen who you wanted. And that was Chief Mike Taylor. So from 1 minute to the next, we had one chief of police exit and another come in and take the seat. What I asked at that time was, can we have a competitive process? Can we do a search? And the response back was no. What we're trying to do now is we're trying to fill this position in a way where we can cast a wide net, and using the historical channels that governments have used. And so that is a competitive process, and we haven't made any decisions, none that I'm aware of. It takes 3 votes on this council to make a decision, as you well know. And so I think that you're making allegations and your innuendos and your suggestions. That's really more of a reflection of your character and your leadership that you have demonstrated here on the council. So with that, my vote was so that we would not spend $25,000 to go out and find our new chief of police. I believe that we can find some qualified candidates by going through a competitive process. And then if we don't, perhaps at that point we can look at spending some money. That's all. That's my position. I'm an elected council member. I am entitled to take my own positions. Thank you.
And
Right,
Mayor, I'll be quick.
Mayor?
Hold on. Go ahead.
Mayor, I'll just,
Hold on. Allow Councilman Cruz Baca to go ahead.
We can waste your time, and like it's been said by Mayor Pro Tem Garcia in the past, and I would really like to move forward with the agenda. However, I do want to point that at that time, your third vote now, Councilmember Pacheco, was voting to bring in. And unfortunately, we are not allowed because it's closed session, to really announce why the decisions were made the way they were made. And that's very unfortunate, because I think that the residents and our constituents should see that. We owe that to them, to be able to see the reasons why we make the decisions that we do. And it's really funny how the vote has changed now. So I'm the enemy all of a sudden, and I'm being attacked because of personal reasons, when this has nothing to do with what I said about Captain Salcedo. Nothing at all. And again, I will repeat that you're only doing it because you're trying to get us off the track as to what the real issue was here on the day of the tree planting. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Councilman Ricardo Pacheco.
Mayor, I'll just stay here. I always give an objective vote. I always make sure that I have all the right information and I do the vote. The vote for Chief Taylor was 3-2, and it was me and Cruz Baca voted for that, and the other 3. And a lot of times we have different votes or different combinations. So when you come back and say the 3 here and the 3 there, I don't know. I vote the way I see the information that I get, and I make my decision. And that's the direction I go. So I'm disappointed in the fact that you're making these allegations about this process where we're just saying we want to have staff save taxpayers' dollars and have staff go out and do these recruitments, as they always do with a lot of other positions. And we're typically going to get a lot of good qualified people to come to interview, probably get a good 4 or 5 people to interview. So that's why, I voted in that direction. I mean, on the other hand, Cruz Baca, I know you're highly favored. You're promoting Chief Reynoso from City of El Monte. I mean, and that's fine. If he wants to apply, or whoever else, you can ask. and they can all apply. Different individuals. I think they should all apply, and we'll give everybody a fair assessment and fair opportunity. Now, I just think either the both of you, or you and Susan Rubio, may want Chief Reynoso more than others, and maybe you're trying to make some kind of issue with that. I don't know. But I think we'll have staff out there doing a recruitment process. It'll be fair. Everybody could apply. The city will save more than $25,000, and we'll go from that point. So that's all I want to say, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Mayor, can I just address, and I know it's going to go on forever, but that is a reason in closed session we should sit down and have discussions. We are having a longer discussion about this issue now instead of sitting down the way we should have in closed session. I want to reiterate, we didn't vote. We didn't have a discussion. I was out the door when they decided, hey, let's vote for the chief situation. And then I told the mayor, I said, Mayor, I object. I will not vote on the way out. It's been done many times before. And this is where we end up with miscommunication, whether it be our fault or not. There is miscommunication because we don't sit down and we discuss it. So again, we should have sat down, and that's why it doesn't seem right, and we have to object publicly because this is really important. And going back to Mr. Reynoso, he came up in the sense that he had been here over 30 years. He grew up in Baldwin Park. He was here for a long time, and he was mentioned. That's all. But nobody voted for him. No one brought him to the table. I'm just saying. He was mentioned because he had been here with the department. They respect him, and it was just a suggestion. It wasn't brought up on the agenda. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Let's move on with the agenda. Okay, the first, the presentation of the plaques to Javier Nerva Navarro, I guess we're moving that up to the next meeting. The next one we have is the presentation by Jose Martinez and new general manager of the Valley County Water District regarding the current state of the drought conditions and declarations of stage 1 water supply emergency. So at this point, do we have them here? Okay, if you could step up, thank you.
We thank them
Let
for
me see the one you have.
the mugs.
Oh, yeah. For the what? For the what?
The mugs.
Oh, yeah, yes. Oh,
There we go.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, staff, members of the audience. My name is Jose Martinez. As mentioned, I am the new general manager for Valley County Water District. And first of all, I just wanted to introduce myself and say hi to everybody, and also go to a little bit of a state of where we're at with the state of California with our conservation efforts and also drought conditions. And then a little bit more detailed into our local area here in Baldwin Park and throughout Valley County Water District. So as soon as we get have a couple slides here, we'll go ahead and go through the presentation. Also, I have with me, I have some staff. Our staff, Colleen, is with me, and also I have our President Contreras and Director Vargas here as well. So I brought a little backup with me, just in case needed. I do have about 14 slides here, so I'll try to keep it as brief. I tend to get a little long-winded. I'm very passionate about water, but I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. If there's any questions from the City Council or from staff, I'd be more than happy to entertain them. I will be, shortly after the presentation, I'll be standing in the back and maybe go outside if there's anybody in the member of the audience that would like to ask some questions. And I have some business cards, and I can certainly talk on a later event if we like to schedule a meeting to talk about any water any issues that you may have questions about. So I certainly welcome any of those questions. With that, another thing, just like we are celebrating our 90th anniversary, so certainly we've been here in the area providing high-quality water, and I certainly want to continue that tradition and being part of the team to go through that and providing the best high-quality water to our customers and the best customer service, world-class customer service. The first map I have there is a U.S. drought map, and this is a great map throughout the entire United States of just drought conditions throughout, and we can really focus in on California there. If you look at that deep, that dark maroon, and if you look at in the corner of the D4 extreme drought, it looks pretty bad right now in the central portion of the state, but 2-3 years ago, even last year, a majority of the state was in that D4 exceptional drought conditions. We really were blessed over last year with high rain totals in Northern California that really set a tone as far as the state to recover from many years of drought and allowed a lot of water to come down from through the Sacramento through the State Water Aqueduct project down to Southern California, so we could start replenishing a lot of our aquifer, our basins here in Southern California. So although it may look a little bleak right there, but that is much better than the conditions that were occurring several years back. Map's a little difficult to see, but this is certainly a map that we could put up on our website, and is actually on the website for the Department of Water Resources. Essentially, if you were to look 2-3 years ago, most of those little blue lines indicating the volumes of water that are in some of the majority of the reservoirs throughout the state of California were very, very low compared to what they're at right now. And if you look at that bucket, because of conservation measures that were appointed or through the state mandate by the government or by the governor to reduce water by looking at a 25% reduction, California has really stepped up to the plate over the last year and saved over 2 million acre feet of water. 1 acre foot of water is equal to 236,000 gallons of water. So that is a significant amount of water that can be saved. I'm sorry, 436 gallons of water. With those conditions that were going on, the state really came back and recognized that with continued drought conditions, that they could actually relax some of the mandates that were going on throughout the state. So back in May, they started looking at, okay, what can we actually do to the state of California, the customers, the residents stepped up. We can actually step back some of these conservation mandates that were out, and because of conditions that were increasing as far as water reservoirs, they actually came up and actually asked each water agency to look at their own water supply. Once they conducted an assessment of their water supply, they would then set their own standards of conservation levels. So the district started to go through the process and looking at that. And when there was a state mandates out there last year, the district was at a mandatory 16%, and that was issued by the state of California. After the district conducted a self-evaluation and continued looking at a projected 3-year continued drought, it was then determined that we had enough water supplies and that we submitted to the state that we would be at a 10%, we would self-regulate ourselves at a 10% reduction. So we went from a 16% state to a self-imposed 10% water conservation mandate. That was very different than many water agencies and water providers throughout the entire state of California. So the district, the staff, we did a good job of evaluating our resources and still submitted to the state that we were going to do our due diligence and still enforce this 10% water conservation mandate of our target that we were going to go after. With that, the district actually, about a month ago, we went from a stage 2 down to a stage 1 water supply emergency. Because conditions are still, as we'll see in a couple of slides later, of the groundwater levels that we have here in the local area are still low, we went down from a stage 2 to stage 1. And one of the major changes to in going down from a stage 2 to stage 1 was to allow 1 additional day of watering. So for all Valley County Water District customers, they are now allowed an extra day of watering. And this, we actually recently mailed out a postcard. It's going to go to all Valley County Water District customers. This schedule reflects exactly the odd and even addresses when they are permitted to water. Still, there is no watering permitted on Wednesdays. And before, when we were at a stage 2, there was no waterings on Saturdays and Sundays. And now going back to stage 1, we would now allow for watering for those days, reflecting whether you're odd or even day on Saturday or Sunday. Although we did go back from a stage 2 to stage 1, there still are permanent water restrictions intact out there, such as hours of watering. You do have to repair a leak within a 5-day period. You're limited to the outdoor watering for irrigation purposes for 3 days. And this is this next mandate was one that really came out through the state, that there is no watering after a 48-hour time frame after measurable rain. Now, everybody can debate a little bit about what measurable rain is, but we'll use a rule of thumb there that if you're front lawn or you see that it's rained, you go from that point on for 48 hours as far as not irrigating from that point. And also a couple of irrigation runoff or overspray broken, whether it be from maintenance or a broken sprinkler or a tilted sprinkler. Runoff from a residence is prohibited, and also washing down of hard surfaces with, even if it is with a hose, a shut-off hose nozzle is still prohibited for washing down any hard surfaces. So those are some of the changes as we go from a stage 2 to a stage 1. And one thing we really like to work with our customers is also practice what we preach. And although we're asking our customers to step up into the process, I'm sorry, I'm skipping one slide. Let me go ahead and talk about this one before I jump into the next one. What we have here is a map, a little side cutout of the water that the district actually depends on. Right now, currently, 100% of our water, of our potable drinking water supplied to our customers, is coming from the main San Gabriel Basin. Recently as a couple weeks ago, the aquifer was at a historic low at 172 feet. And the last couple weeks, because of the ability to purchase imported water coming from the Sacramento Delta and other locations where we can actually purchase that water and spread it into the basin, there's actually been a little bit of recovery. And also with the local precipitation that has occurred, that also has had a positive impact on the levels in the main San Gabriel Basin. So with this, this is good news, and actually it's also great news of the weather, the storms that we've had over the last couple of weeks. It's even better news up in Northern California, where they're about 300% above average for precipitation rates over there. So certainly the snow that we're receiving in the Sierra snowpack has been very beneficial, and is going to be very beneficial for the state throughout the year. But if things don't get a little better, and if we don't have that continued rain throughout the winter months, the state may come back and look at each agency and implement additional permanent water conservation standards. So all today, I'm coming and say we're going from a stage 2 to stage 1. After this winter, if the state decides that enough water agencies aren't doing their due diligence to conserve water, and the snowpack and the rain precipitation up north and down south isn't enough to provide enough resources, the state may come back again and ask each district to come up and step up and increase what our conservation mandates are. With that, the district certainly does try to promote water conservation as best we can. We ask our customers to any way to look both indoors and outdoors. About 90% of our district customers are residential customers, so we do focus in on the residential customers. And if you really look at residential customers' water use, about 60% of it is focused on outdoors. So when we ask our customers, that is where you look at for water conservation, focus on the outdoors and outdoor irrigation. And as I was mentioning earlier, the district certainly tries to practice what we preach. Not only do we look at our own facilities to be conservation efficient, to make sure we're using water in an efficient manner, we're also monitoring our system as best we can to identify that there's any leaks in the system. So our staff is out there identifying and fixing leaks in a timely manner. And we also try to promote as many of informational classes and workshops. And actually this Saturday, unfortunately, it's at the pretty close to the same time as the parade, so I apologize for competing for a little bit market right there. But certainly, if you time it right, you might be able to catch both. But we'll certainly like to have and we are going to have additional workshops, not only the fall, but out the spring. So certainly it's a great, it's a free workshop where our residents and our customers throughout Valley County Water District can attend. Another event that we have coming up is a rain barrel distribution. Rain barrel actually to capture and harvest rainwater. This event is going to be on December 10th of 2016. We have some flyers in the back. Colleen or myself can hand out some flyers. This is on a first-come, first-served basis. The distribution of the rain barrels will start at 8 a.m. So we're certainly excited about distributing these rain barrels out to our customers so they can actually capture, as you see there in the picture, and harvest some of the rainwater and use it for mostly for outdoor gardening. That's typically the main purpose for capturing. Also, we're going to have a high-efficient toilet distribution early 2017. We will be advertising for this event on our website, and also we'll have flyers and we'll have them placed certainly here at the City Hall and other locations throughout our service area to advertise. And as I mentioned, you can look to our website when we actually have a firm date of when this distribution will be. With that, I apologize if I went a little long. As I mentioned, I do get a little passionate about water and just the conservation and use of water, and I'd be more than happy to entertain any questions right now.
Yeah, first of all, Jose, I want to thank you very much and thank the Valley County Water as well for being here as well. And, you guys do an excellent job of informing the general community. Now, out of curiosity, I know there's the total, 9 water wells, and how many of those are operational?
Of the
Yeah,
water
for
wells?
the Valley County, yes.
For the most part, we focus on 4 to 5 wells.
Okay.
Some other wells are operational that we can use and bring in as backup. And when I say a majority of our water comes from the groundwater, we do have backup water supplies that we can receive through the Metropolitan Water District and Covina Irrigating. We prefer to use the groundwater because it is the most affordable source of water that we bring into our system. And also, and I can go on for another half an hour, and I'm sure you don't want to hear it because of other technical and water quality issues of just the combination of the water. But that is the source we try to utilize the best to our ability is our groundwater supplies.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Stephanie, yeah,
Mayor?
Councilman Cruz Baca?
Yes, and thank you very much. And it's great to see somebody with as much passion for water as
I'm containing
Al
it as
Contreras
best I
has,
can.
and Mr. Woods, who served a short time on the water board, but they have a great passion for water. But I have a question, only because it's been brought up by my residents in the neighborhood where I live. The city of Irwindale is building an industrial park across the street from me. It's about 10 acres, I guess, right? About 10 acres. It doesn't really matter. They knocked down the dwellings, and my question to you is, the water that comes from the water hydrants, is that non-potable water, or is that potable water? Because they have had a huge hose connected. It is Irwindale, and I believe you serve as part of Irwindale or Irwindale. The water hydrant is on the corner of Los Angeles and Alderson, and the sprinklers, these high-powered sprinklers, have been on for almost a week, 24/7. So my neighbors are wondering, they're coming to me and asking me, we are not allowed to water. How come they've been watering for the last 6 or 7 days, 24 hours a day? Attached to the water hydrant. So that is my question to you. Is it something that the city of Irwindale did, or so that I can go back and give them some answers?
I'd hate to. I would have to know a little bit of specifics, and I'll use a little bit. I'll pull the card that I'm still relatively new to the area. I've been on staff for about a month and a half, so I would have to look at that exact location for that fire hydrant to see where that water is provided. I may have backup right here, but just to answer the question a little bit, I can't speak for Valley County Water District. 100% of the water that's being provided, doesn't matter if it's for a residence, a fire hydrant, it is potable drinking water. It is all within the same. And if there is development, the district isn't responsible for issuing development or issuing permits to proceed with development. So if they were given the right to develop that land, they came to us, is there water available? And then we would say, yes, water is available, and they're allowed to permit. A lot of the watering that occurs on any type of project or industrial location like that is for dust control. So again, there's other agencies at large that they're actually required to do some type of irrigation like that to prevent dust and other portions of it as far as during the construction process. So they may lack some water quality, not water quality, but it's water use requirements, just because that's what they're actually mandated as part of the construction process. Is there anything else you would like to add to that, President Contreras? I think no.
It is potable drinking water right there in Alderson and Los Angeles Street. They did come to us and put an application for the new development that's going to be in that corner. So yeah, we're aware of it, but we were not aware that water was leaking.
Oh, thank you.
And I was just informed it is for dust control.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Just really quickly, I just want to, I'm sorry, it was a long presentation. Can you repeat the date where you're having the efficient toilets exchange program? What day was that?
It's early 2017. I didn't want to give a certain date because we're still trying to get the exact date when we have the product, and we'll set up but it will be announced. I can actually come back when we have a firm date. I'll make an announcement for that.
Well, I just would like to suggest that you let our CEO know so we can put it on the website. I know that I've been part of a lot of programs at the schools, and it really is a great deal. So just as soon as you know, can you let us know so we can advertise it for you?
Certainly.
Thank you.
We'll pass it along so you can advertise it on our website as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There's also one other comment that was kind of before I started. You may notice in some of the open channels, you see a large volume of water flowing down those open channels. A lot of people notice, like, where's that water going? Just to respond to that, that water is actually being managed by the local water purveyors. And anytime you see a volume of water like that running down, that's actually the management of moving it further along to other spreading ground basins. The San Gabriel River, with all the collective agencies do a fantastic job, a much better job than other river basins, I will say, as far as managing the water supplies and really utilizing every single drop that we can to replenish our groundwater supplies. But anytime there's any questions that you have of water questions, certainly I would be more than welcome to come here to the City Council and make a presentation. And I'll try to keep it much shorter next time.
All righty. Okay. No further questions. Want to thank you very much. And also, board member, President Al, you currently the president? Okay,
yes,
President of the
President
Valley County
Contreras.
Water District. And Jose, thank you very much for everyone being here as well. And I just want to end by letting you know, Al, we're with you, brother. Stick it out. You're going to be good. Our prayers go out to you, and you're going to persevere. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
you for the gifts.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you for the gifts, by the way. Thank you.
And welcome to Baldwin Park.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Jose.
I'll make one. The last time I was here, I actually lost to Baldwin Park in CIF playoffs in '93. So you're welcome.
What's school, Jose? What school?
I went to Damien High School.
Damien.
So
All right.
that was Lawrence Phillips ran me over for the winning touchdown. So it was good times.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right. The next presentation is by Belinda Baez Fortuno, co-chair of Safe Clean Neighborhoods Park and Open Space for All campaign on the Los Angeles County-wide Comprehensive Park and Recreation Needs Assessment and the Los Angeles County Parks and Open Space Museum. Hey, so thank you. All righty. Thank you very much for being here.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and council members, staff, and members of the audience. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about the Park and Open Space measure that is on your ballots this November 8th that would provide funding for parks and open space throughout LA County. And I want to be very explicit that I do work for the campaign, not as a paid person, but as a volunteer. We're tremendously excited about the opportunity that if the voters should decide, we will have funding for parks and open space in LA County, and we think that this is a phenomenal opportunity, in particular for cities like Baldwin Park, which have high and very high need for parks and open space. And I'm just going to go over this very briefly in terms of why this measure is needed. The primary reason is that for those of you that are familiar with Proposition A of 92 and 96, those were measures that were adopted by the voters that provided funding from the County of Los Angeles for park and open space to cities and in a lot of program categories. Those two measures, one has expired, the 92 and the 96 measure will expire in a couple of years. This is the only source of local funding for parks and open space in LA County. Once that goes, there is no other dedicated source of funding unless we pass an additional measure. The other reason that this measure is so critically important is that, you know, as cities are experiencing and the unincorporated areas throughout LA County, our parks are old. You know, they're tired. They've been around for 30 years. They need significant refurbishment and repair. So now is the time to be able to make sure that we are addressing those needs that we have, not only for new park space, but also for improving what we have so that, you know, kids can play baseball and feel safe, so that we can have, you know, repaired drinking fountains, appropriate restrooms, lighting in our parks, those types of things. So it is, again, something that is critically needed. We are fortunate that LA County invested $3 million over the last 2 years in actually determining what the park needs were throughout LA County. Past measures didn't do that. Basically, it was, you know, somewhat of a political process to determine how those funds would be allocated. Because of a motion by Supervisor Ridley Thomas and Supervisor Antonovich, due to a measure that actually failed in 2014, they directed the county to undertake a needs assessment to ensure that when this measure was put together, that it was put together to actually address that park need. So we've concluded with that process. And I'm not going to go over this in any kind of detail, but this is a national model now for how to do park need assessment. It is receiving lots of accolades across the nation in terms of the way that it was done. Was it perfect? No, but it was a tremendous start for how this kind of process should go forward in the future. And I think it's somewhat similar to, I'm sure, what you experienced with Measure A, with Measure M rather, where it's from the bottom up. We determined what the need was by having community meetings. There were over 188 study areas that were identified throughout LA County to look at what the needs were in specific communities. In many cases, there were more than one need assessment area identified in each city. Baldwin Park happens to be one complete unit, but that need looked at lots of different factors and metrics that was based on data to determine what that need is. And there was a steering committee that was involved in that. I happened to be fortunate to be an appointee of Supervisor Solis to sit on that committee, along with more than 20 others that worked on this for a number of months. And there was a workshop held here in the city of Baldwin Park to assess that need. And cumulatively, for all of LA County, the figure that was, arrived at in terms of what that need is for both repair and the need for new open space is over $20 billion. So, that need obviously is tremendously high. There was an effort by the Board of Supervisors, and they directed staff to look at different funding mechanisms. We could not do an assessment district because that is now not legal in the state of California, as it was back when Proposition A was adopted. So they looked at different levels of funding that were necessary and what it would mean to taxpayers to be able to move something forward. The decision that was made was that it would be a parcel tax at 1.5 cents per square foot. And that was the minimum that we thought was, or that the board thought was appropriate in order to be able to actually have a funding measure that could start to address the need and yet be something that most voters could feel comfortable with. So just to look at what was identified in the city of Baldwin Park, you have 21 plus acres of park area in your city. You have over 76, almost 77,000 population. You have less than a third of an acre per resident of park space. The average in the county is 3.3, which isn't great, by the way, our county average, but Baldwin Park is significantly under that average. And only 22% of your population lives within a half mile of a park. Again, another great standard for determining whether or not there is adequate park space in a community. The county average is 49. So again, Baldwin Park is way under that average. And as I mentioned previously, you had a meeting on January 13th of 2016 in order to get input from the community on what their needs are, and for also the city to be able to present, what they were prioritizing. That work that the city did and in the documents that they submitted to the Park and Open Space District identified 10 prioritized projects for a total of $45 million, and that is for both repairs and new parks. And there's a very detailed report on this that if the council members are interested in receiving, I know staff has.
Belinda, I'd like
yes.
to ask you, on this map, what are the highest need colors? Will you talk about
yes,
that? Okay.
Yes, I will. And just to answer the question very quickly, all of the dark orange, almost red-looking color are the high need areas. The brownish colors are also in need, and the gradation of colors goes down to yellow and green where there is no need. So just very quickly, the city identified almost $8.7 million in deferred maintenance for your existing parks and a total of $54+ million for new parks. So the board did approve putting this on the ballot, and the decision was made to move ahead with a per square footage parcel tax. And it's something that is on the ballot, as I said, on November 8th. It will generate an average of about $94 million a year countywide. That cost at 1.5 cents per square foot for the average home of 1,500 square feet is about $22.50 a year. And the important point I want to make about that is that we in LA County for many years were paying a tax for parks, and in many cases it was over this average because of the fact that the formula is a little different now. The average is actually lower for all of us. So it's not a new tax. It can be looked at as a replacement tax. And, in my family, I don't go to the movies that often, but when we do, I know I spend more than $22.50 to be able to go see a movie. So this is something that we think is a real de minimis cost. This does apply to businesses. I want to be very upfront about that it's not only for residential homes, but it's also applied to business. The average small business in Los Angeles County is also about 1,500 square feet to 2,000 square feet. So the cost to businesses is not significant. In fact, residential properties are paying 2/3 of this tax. So countywide, only 1/3 of businesses are contributing to this. So again, I'll just go over this very quickly. The, I think, very unique portion of this measure is that it does pay for repairs and safety improvements to parks. In the measures that we had in the past, that was not the case. So this measure is written so that all of those parks that have been identified in Baldwin Park that need repairs can be funded. Building new parks, and then to go to the colors and what they demonstrate, and that is that in these orange areas are the areas where the city of Baldwin Park does have park deficiencies. So just as an example, I know that one of the submissions by the city was to build new parks in the area of the 605 freeway and Ramona Boulevard, where you have very low park presence, and also in downtown Baldwin Park. And there are some areas where you will see that there is either, if it's gray, it means it's industrial, or there's business. It's not really residents in that area, and that's why you see kind of those blocks in there.
And Belinda?
Yes.
At the last council meeting, I had requested this information be presented to the city council because I really appreciated that through this effort, you captured where the need is, where the greatest need is for park space. And I'd really like us to spend some time on that to understand that there are some efforts, some initiatives to look at joint use projects throughout the city. And I think as part of that process, it'd be important for us to understand where is the highest need.
Absolutely. And again, these maps are available online at LA County Park Needs, and staff has been provided with copies of them. They're accessible to anyone that wants to take a look at them. But I do want to make it clear that, there are obviously changing conditions in every community. And while this needs assessment is very important to guide the city and to help you determine where you want to put your future parks, it's not hardwired that you actually have to spend it on a certain corner in a certain location. You might not have available land in that particular area. You may have changing demographics. Maybe the population in that neighborhood is getting older or younger, whatever it might be. So that's something that the city will be able to determine and to go to the open space district with a proposal of how you might want to allocate your funding.
I just want to say thank you very much, because I attended 2 of the workshops when they originally started, and also some of the workshops that Supervisor Solis has had, and they did explain the areas at that time of what the map means and where we are park poor, which we are very park poor in Baldwin Park. And of course, all the needs and so forth of our communities, and the advantages even for seniors to have a park where they can walk or be outdoors for a while and exercise a bit. And not only for the young people, but also for the seniors, like myself, which I go to the park every day to walk. So I thank you so very much, because this has been very informative, and I know you've been working on this a long time, along with the supervisor from our district, which is District 1. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I was going to go back.
Yeah, I just want to clarify for our community members and just the residents in general. With other measures, sometimes there was a concern that perhaps we would be paying this tax and then we didn't get the money back. And I know that was a concern with other measures for different reasons. But this one in particular has done a great job of making sure that there's a percentage, correct me if I'm wrong, that will go directly to each city depending on the needs, correct?
That is correct. And this graphic, starts to give you a high-level picture of what that is. The 75% in the upper left, 35%, I wish it was 75, 35% in the upper left-hand corner is the amount that goes directly back to each of the study areas. And in the case of Baldwin Park, you are a study area, so you will get a specific allocation. And I have actually the specific figures for you on the next slide. And then there are several different program areas where cities and nonprofit organizations and other qualified entities can apply. However, I do want to point out that there is one pot here, the 13% that is for urban greening, that is for the high and very high need cities and unincorporated areas only. So that's about half the county qualifies under that high and very high need. Those pots of money, only those cities and study areas that meet that criteria can actually compete for that money. So and then there are three other pots of funding. One that is more for rivers and watershed protection. There's another one for veterans and youth employment. But if you look at this, and I know that this is a little tough to read, the 35% that's going back to the cities, and I'll get to the city of Baldwin Park here in a minute, is about $32 million a year. And then the pot for the high and the very high need is $12 million, as is the protecting open space and the regional facilities pot. And then the youth and training pot is at a little over $3 million. The city of Baldwin Park can qualify in all those categories to submit competitive grants. However, you will get a very specific amount that is part of the first program area that totals $213,000 a year. That's not a whole lot of money, I have to say. Each city is getting a percentage based on their number of residents, their square footage of coverage and such. And then on top of that, you get servicing and maintenance money of $35,000 a year. Now, that allocation is going to be in perpetuity. Okay, this is one of the things that the Supervisor Kuehl actually on the dais decided to take out the sunset date. So in order to compare what this measure is giving you versus what Measure A gave you back in 92 and 96, you really have to look at just the 22-year time period. So the difference between what was in Measure A back in 92, 96 and what is projected for the city out of Measure A is a little over $3 million or more just during that period. So one of the opportunities that we think is really great is that cities can then bond potentially for projects if, in fact, they know that they have a funding stream that is coming in. The other thing that local resources do is that they help leverage state and federal money. And I was fortunate to actually work for a state agency for 10 years that gave grants to cities like Baldwin Park to do projects. So I know how important matching funds are and the opportunity that can create. So I'll just stop there and see if there's any questions before I go on.
I have a question. Do you have the map with the actual streets?
Yes, we can get that for you. It is, it's actually online, can be printed out, and when you zoom in, you can get all the street names and freeways and all.
What we can
the
do
graphic actually that we have doesn't do that.
Okay, let's go ahead and go back to the map,
Sure.
and then let's just talk about what the areas are just for our information, because that's what I really wanted us to highlight here.
Okay.
And all the information that you've provided is excellent. Thank you. We have already approved a resolution in support of this. And so it was really to understand where the high needs for park space are in our city. And so as we look at this map, you can see where it's red. That's the highest need.
Correct.
So that would be along Ramona Boulevard, where that intersects with Francisquito Avenue. That would be considered a high need area.
Correct. So I can't find the pointer on this particular one. I'm doing the wrong thing here. Okay, so this area here is definitely a high need area, and then the area up here, and I believe that this is Ramona, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So these are the two areas, and then this area down here, which I believe is your downtown area, those are the...
That's not our downtown area. The red area is Merced and the 10 freeway near Walmart, the Walmart Center. Right. Our downtown area is close to Morgan Park, so where the green
Here?
where you have the green square, that's our downtown area. And so as I understand it, that's the moderate need
That's
area.
correct. Right, that's fair need.
And so the red areas are really the areas that we would want to focus for this type of funding.
Right.
Is what I think we're.
Yes, you can apply for either very high or high need areas for funding, and that is, both within the pot of funding that's designated for urban greening and actually, in any of the other categories. So as an example, if there is a major tributary that runs through any of these areas and you wanted to put a bike path in, that's something that there is funding for. So there are different ways to approach it. You can do smaller pocket parks. So the city would have that opportunity.
Right. So the red area, again, that's the highest highest need. And then the orange would be the kind of a need area.
Yes.
And you can see that everything pretty much outside of the Walnut Creek Park area, outside of the Morgan Park and downtown area, and then perhaps outside of the far north is a need. Right?
Right.
So I wanted the city council to see this so that we can start to look at where we start to think about placing these parks. And based on the studies that you conducted, that I understand, the endeavor was about $3 million. So clearly there was a lot of research and study and some of the focus groups that you had here in our community. So, thank you for doing that. And it will serve as a resource to us moving forward. And I just want to point out that outside of Morgan Park, or the area around Morgan Park, and the downtown area is a moderate need area, and then pretty much everything outside of that is a need.
Right, and the city did submit, as I recall, it was for 3 new parks, and again, those could be in any place that you determine in the high need areas, and also for, I think, some significant playground equipment, lighting, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may
Yes, Councilman Ricardo Pacheco.
just want to thank you for the effort that you put out, and hopefully this will be that everybody votes yes on this item here. But I'd also like to ask that the city's also trying to do some joint projects with the school district, and does this also allow us to tie in some of the funding that we would use for that sort of a joint effort?
Absolutely. One of the things, I was actually talking to your staff earlier about that joint use is something that is encouraged, and that as long as we can get permits from the actual landholder, which would be the school district, to be able to enter into long-term agreements for operations and maintenance of parks, absolutely. And that's what, in built-out cities, that's what you have to do in order to maximize your resources and to be able to effectively get some things done. So we're also very encouraged that this particular funding source is going to allow for actual planning dollars to be expended for community outreach and community engagement to ensure that there's a real participatory process in developing projects. So absolutely.
So when you talk about development, does that mean doing the studies, doing engineering drawings, and the construction drawings and documents that it takes to actually build it? So some of the money could be used for that, and then the actual construction.
And the project, right. I think a lot of times, and again, just because I was in this business for a long time, we would get grant applications for projects that hadn't been scoped yet. So, then it turns out that there's, an increase in the cost once you get to the construction phase. And it's because, grants are submitted without that knowledge and understanding. So this particular measure will have a program that will allow for what they're calling technical assistance and planning, so that, you can do some scoping, do early community meetings. You can hire, a design consultant that can help with some, initial conceptual designs for projects. And a lot of times that's what you need, actually, to convince a school district or some other joint partner that this is a project that they can live with. So this is a very unique feature of the measure that it will allow for that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I have a question for you.
Yes,
So, and I understand that this measure was, the intent behind the measure is to provide open space regardless of where it's at. You just want to promote walkability and greener areas, especially for low-income communities like ours. So would a shovel-ready project have a better chance at moving forward if you had something ready to go?
A lot of this will depend on how the grant guidelines are written. So I would really encourage the city to have their staff participate in the development of those guidelines, which is going to happen. Again, we're all hoping that it passes in November. I'm sure that they're already planning, for how they're going to develop those guidelines. Typically in any grant program, if you have a shovel-ready project, that always looks good and will make you more competitive. However, on the other hand, we, I think, are encouraging the county to look at communities that don't have the advantage of having a shovel-ready project because they haven't been able to invest in getting it shovel-ready, oftentimes are at a disadvantage. So while that, yes, is a good thing, we want to see that the money is well spent and that it's, a project that's ready to move forward. We're also really encouraging communities that lack in resources, that haven't been able to get to that point, that they get just as fair treatment and don't get left behind. So I think that'll be, those kinds of things are not worked out yet, but that's one of the things that I know my organization is very concerned about in making sure that we are having a fair process and that the resources are evenly distributed.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And if there's any additional information anyone needs, there's the email address that you can email to, and then the websites for additional information. And thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, at this point, we're going to the presentation on medical marijuana businesses and related issues. So at this point, do we have presenters? All righty. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, members of City Government, citizens of Baldwin Park. Thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to be here this evening and talk to you about this issue that's sweeping at least the state of California as we speak. My name is Michael Azat. I represent California Commodities and Holdings, which is a company engaged in various medical marijuana businesses. Also here is Nick Samaniego. He's the Director of Communications for California Commodities and Holdings. We appreciate you allowing us to talk to you a little bit about this. I know that this is a heated issue being debated by a lot of communities throughout the state of California, so hopefully we can just give you a little bit of insight as to what we do, our experiences, and the experiences that we've had and seen at the effect of the legalization of medical marijuana has begun to sweep across the state of California. California Commodities and Holdings is a company that, like I said, has a couple businesses, various businesses in the medical marijuana business. I'm going to talk about a few of those tonight. I'm going to briefly talk about the Spliffen Group, which is the flagship company of California Commodities and Holdings. And I'm going to talk about Construction, which is a construction company that's also under the umbrella of California Commodities and Holdings. And Construction builds state-of-the-art cultivation facilities. And what they do is they go into underutilized industrial areas and they build marijuana cultivation facilities. They just finished one, or they're finishing one in downtown Los Angeles now. They're beginning one in Desert Hot Springs. As some people may know, Desert Hot Springs is one of 2 cities in the state of California to be the first to issue conditional use permits. Conditional use permits are exactly what they sound like. I don't have to tell the citizens, the members of the city council this, but perhaps members of the audience would not know that conditional use permits are a little different than what it's been with medical marijuana in a lot of cities. For example, Los Angeles only allows limited immunity. It does not issue licenses or permits. But cities are now starting to issue these permits. And rather than get into the details of the laws and things like that, I just want to talk about why it is that California Commodities and Holdings comes to communities and builds these things for communities, why cities want them there. For starters, there is a lot of benefits to allowing these kinds of cultivation centers in your cities. And those benefits, they fall on the citizens through a lot of different ways. The obvious benefit is taxes. These are very, very profitable enterprises that generate large amounts of tax revenues for cities. That means taxes used for programs such as parks, as you just had a presentation on, programs such as schools, programs such as law enforcement initiatives. A lot of times cities say to themselves, well, why do I want marijuana in my town? The answer is marijuana is already there. The question is whether or not towns want to regulate it, whether or not they want to push illegal sales out of their towns and bring in legitimate businesses that follow the laws, that follow the regulations, that are subject to accountability, and that are subject to transparency. And that's what California Commodities and Holdings is all about. As I mentioned, the first of those benefits is the tax windfall. The second, though, is also the crime reduction. I've worked closely with law enforcement at different points in my career. I was a member of law enforcement at one point in the military. I was a prosecutor at some time. I've seen the effects of drugs on communities, but it's not so much it's not, in addition to the effects of drugs in the communities, it's the effects of those underground criminal organizations and cartels that are selling drugs in communities. And I think that is why you're seeing a lot of towns embrace legalization, because they're sick of it, because they've had enough. And you see these images of, rather than kids on the corner going and buying dope from a gang member or from a drug dealer, we're moving past that. We're moving to a place where this is becoming lawful for individuals that are of age to consume it. It's going to be voted on, Prop 64, on November 8th, which is likely to pass. And so the question is, to what level do communities want to allow it to be regulated and utilized for a benefit in their communities, rather than just the burden that it has presented in the past through the unlawful sale of it? I want to talk briefly about the benefits. Protection of neighborhoods and local communities basically is the reduced risk of illegal grow operations in residential areas. Illegal grow operations present serious issues for communities. They create fires. They create unwanted illegal trafficking. They create underground markets. They create risk to the communities through the kind of individuals that are attracted to those organizations. Also, these are great drains on the community's resources. Power, water, environmental hazards, pesticides, things of that nature that are being pumped into this product that's ultimately getting out to the communities. Through legalization, through regulation, the cities can have their say in controlling those kinds of things. They can control the environmental impact of these. They can reap the benefits of these kinds of things and keep an eye on exactly what's going on in their own communities. The state requirements for licensing are also moving beyond just the legalization of the sales. They're moving under what's called MRSA, the Medical Marijuana Regulation and Safety Act, which will come into effect in 2018. The state has already passed this. It will require marijuana to not only just be lawfully sold, but it also needs to be tested, just like anything else in the pharmaceutical industry. It needs to be packaged properly. It needs to be packaged in a way so the consumers know what they're buying. It needs to have signage on it that's proper and according to regulations and standards that should be created by the members of the community and the government. And it should be appropriately sold in those areas where the city should choose it to be sold or manufactured. California Commodities and Holdings is not in the business so much of retail sales, but rather large-scale commercial cultivation. But through the legalization of these various stages of medical marijuana is how cities control and reap the benefits of it. And also, establishing trust and integrity in the system with the local law enforcement and public safety goes a long way as well. Because ultimately, you want your local law enforcement to be coming and inspecting these facilities. You want your local law enforcement to be a presence at these facilities to ensure that it's being done the way that you, the city government, wants it to be done. And from my experience and seeing the way it's gone under Proposition D, the way it's going under the City of Desert Hot Springs, the local law enforcement has been a partner in those communities, and they have actually made a difference in ensuring that it's being done the right way and the way that this state is moving towards in the future. Now I'm going to have Mr. Samaniego now talk further about the benefits of regulated cultivation.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather, so my voice isn't quite as lovely as it usually is. One thing I'd like to point out is that our intent is not to convince the city of Baldwin Park to revisit the issue of allowing dispensaries in the communities. Very clearly want people to know that we are seeking to establish a partnership and an understanding for commercial cultivation of medical marijuana. Obviously, marijuana, medical, recreational, the entire umbrella is a very polarizing issue, mainly because distribution seems to raise the hair on a lot of people's necks because for generations there have been many safety concerns, issues with crime, issues with distribution in schools, and we're eliminating that entire aspect of what has for many years been negatively associated with this industry by focusing on the positive and the many benefits that commercial cultivation can bring to a community. Mike already talked about how it undercuts organized crime, but it also reduces street violence because when you take it out of the shadows and you're bringing something that's already happening here and legitimizing it, you're offering clear solutions for dispute resolution. So, there isn't that opportunity for people to go out and retaliate with violence because now there's a clear path if something goes wrong with the transaction between vendors or people involved in this industry. It's very clear cut how you would address and resolve those issues. Another huge benefit is the creation of the jobs that a facility like this would bring. One facility alone can employ 50 to 60 different part-time, full-time employees, contractors, specialty personnel, not to mention all of the different side relationships that would be created as a result of a facility of this size with different utilities and businesses that are already in the area. And then we've talked about generating revenue for important priorities or projects that right now don't have the funding that is necessary. So looking at just a very simple and easy 6% cultivation tax on an 18,000 square foot facility, you're looking at well over $600,000 in tax revenue for the city. And then you can determine where and how that money is spent. And there's a lot of different options, whether you want to tax the canopy of the facility, whether you want to allow for additional processes like manufacturing and how you would tax that. The rental income that could be generated by these facilities, and then, of course, labor and overhead. So our objective tonight was not to come and try to convince anybody of the benefits of this. It was more to initiate a dialogue, let people know what the intent is, and then encourage the community and members of the council to ask questions. We're not quite sure where everybody stands on this issue, so really this is kind of a launching point to dispel a lot of the misconceptions that are associated with this industry. We are local. We're all born, everybody that is a part of this company is born and raised in greater Los Angeles area. I'm a family man. I've got kids. Mike is a family man. He's got kids. We're really putting a positive face to this industry and showing people that, when you have the right intentions and you do things the right way, that a lot of good things can come of it. So with that, I'd like to offer any of the members of the council or members of the audience the opportunity to ask any questions about our intentions.
I have some questions. Oh, the mayor's not here. I got a little confused between your presentations because first you were talking about cultivation, I believe, Michael, and sales. So if you're cultivating, from what I understand, and you're a grower, from other presentations that we've seen, you ship out. You don't sell within the city. That's only for dispensaries, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
So I'm confused because if you're talking about opening up a cultivation facility, then you wouldn't be selling in our city. You would be shipping out.
That is correct. Right. There would be no direct-to-patient or direct-to-consumer sales from a facility in Baldwin Park. It would all be conducted at legal licensed dispensaries throughout the state of California.
And my other thing is that you just touch the surface of security from other facilities, including the one in Palm Desert or out by Palm Springs. The camera and the security is so heavy that the police departments can view what's going on with the inside the facility at any time. And you didn't even touch on part of that. How do you, when the product is being taken out of the facility, how do you guard that you're not going to be held up or whatever is going to happen from point A to point when it leaves Baldwin Park? In other words, I'm really concerned about that. Sure. Because it seems like the security, I know that there's a lot for you to discuss, But I would really like to open it up at another time to our residents so that you can do some outreach with our residents so that they too can give you some of the, and also with our law enforcement, with our interim chief or some of our police officers, so that they too can give you their reservations or what they like about it. I don't know, but I think that I would really like to see that. And you said street violence, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but I've never known of someone on marijuana to go out and kill a bunch of people.
You're absolutely
in the
right.
contrary, I mean, it's like they're so laid back. So, street violence to me doesn't apply to marijuana. I'm sorry. So,
Okay.
I know that's probably you're trying to paint a picture for us of whatever's going on. But the security is a big deal for me. And also, of course, what will happen within the facility of the cultivating of the marijuana. Thank you.
Absolutely. So there's a couple things in there. You want to? Yeah. So a couple things in there. First and foremost, yes, absolutely. Again, initiating the dialogue with members of the community, members of law enforcement. That's what we would very much love to do. So we're involved in those discussions in other cities as well. We're very actively involved with what's happening in the city of Los Angeles. A lot more of that has to do really with the distribution side of things. So not all of that really applies here, but it's still very much the same process. So as far as security goes, security is something that is, when it's done properly, it's more for a deterrent. It's more of a deterrent than it really is for protection. We have a model for how a dispensary and or a cultivation facility should set up their security system and personnel at our facility down in the Arts District downtown Los Angeles. It involves 24-hour armed security, cameras in nearly every conceivable space. There is a live feed to an off-site location that is also monitoring what is happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is key card access to certain areas. There is fingerprint access to other areas. Every single person that works in that facility or that would have a need to come onto the premises would be live scanned, background checked in order to make sure that they are cleared and authorized, for that type of employment. And the list goes on and on and on. But the bottom line is, if you don't have a solid relationship with local law enforcement and a strong understanding of what it is that is taking place there, then you can't move forward successfully with a business like this. So again, we could have a very in-depth conversation on security. Is there anything you want to add on that? No. Yeah. So we could do that at a later time. We could spend more time talking about this. It really just it depends on what direction you guys would like to go this evening.
Mayor.
Councilmember, Vice Mayor Monica
Hi,
Garcia.
good evening. I am just curious to know what our community feels about this issue, and what is the public sentiment? And in some of the cities that you've worked with, what are some methods? How have you approached that outreach so that you could gauge the public sentiment?
Sure. So again, a lot of the concerns and the stigmas are immediately dispelled when you let people know right off the bat that we're not looking to set up a corner dispensary that is going to be bringing a lot of traffic from outside of the area with people that are not familiar with the local neighborhood. So right away, that dispels a lot of it. And then just helping people understand that it's really run like a state-of-the-art agricultural facility with a little bit of increased security. So as long as people have a clear understanding of what's taking place there, and there's a solid relationship with local law enforcement, almost immediately people start to see that it's a win-win opportunity. Of course, there's always going to be naysayers, and some people are never going to see it because it is a controversial subject like medical marijuana, but the plants that are being grown in those facilities genuinely do change lives. The majority of the plants that would be grown in a facility like this are high in what is called CBD. It's I'm sorry, I can't speak well right now because I'm sick. Cannabidiol. It's the non-psychoactive element in the marijuana plant. It doesn't get you high, but that is what is shown to be effective in fighting tumors and treating dozens of different conditions and illnesses, and they're just beginning to scratch the surface on the properties of this plant and the CBD component. So that is something that I think when you help people understand, look, this is a genuine treatment alternative for people. It's not just, growing a bunch of pots so that we can sell it around the state and get people high and make a bunch of money. No, we are genuinely vested in growing a medicinal plant with the medicinal properties, and it's got, there are a lot of different ways that we can take the plant and then create a number of different products with it as well. So it's not just growing and harvesting the flowers and then selling them. No, we're creating topical lotions and tinctures and supplements and pills and a lot of other things. Again, these are non-psychoactive products. This is, you take these pills or you use these lotions. This is not going to get you high. This is going to eliminate, your arthritis pain in your elbow after being out on a golf course too long. So, helping people understand what are the types of products, what are the types of uses that come from those plants really goes a long way.
Kind of like an educational process.
Yes.
So I think what I'm gathering is you would look at a specific project, a specific site, and then talk about the manufacturing at that site, kind of the aspects of what that project would look like, and share that information with the public versus tackling it from like a policy perspective, which is much more, kind of regulation, how we regulate that type of use here in the city. So if that's true, then I would just suggest putting together a proposal on, what the project looks like, what the community outreach could look like, and any other aspects of the project, because I think that we are all just kind of exploring this issue. This is a new wave for local government, and we've seen some cities, adopt regulation regarding these types of policies, and it's because I think the writing is on the wall based on the November 8th election, so they're trying to get ahead of it. I think we want to weigh those pros and cons, but it would be, I think, helpful if we saw proposals, that spoke to specific aspects of the project, how you would go about with the outreach, and then some of the ramifications, or some of the considerations, I should say, about like public policy, how we regulate those types of uses. What are other cities doing? So just like a proposal for us to review, I think would be helpful.
Thank you for the recommendation.
Alrighty. Now, real quick, what was the city that you mentioned? Palm Desert? Desert Hot Springs.
Desert Hot Springs was one of the first, but if just the League of California Cities keeps a log of all the different cities that are either moving forward with some type of ordinance, have passed some type of ordinance, or have banned all different types of marijuana activity altogether. So, you have small, tiny little cities that some people have never heard of, and you have San Jose, San Diego, San Francisco, and the list goes on, that are, they are now putting these ordinances in place because of what is also coming with the election next week, but also with the impending changes that apply with the MMRSA, the state regulations as well.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else have any other further questions? So if not, I guess at this point, Vice Mayor, you mentioned about the various items, and some of the other council members wishing to state anything else for them to put together and come back.
Well, excuse me,
Yes,
I
go
think
ahead.
that I mentioned a lot of that,
Okay.
and Vice Mayor
Yeah.
Garcia, in a sense, reiterated. It was different. It was different language, but that's basically what I was asking. If I would really like to see what your security is going to look like at length. And also, if you could please sit down and give us an idea of what our police department feels, how they feel about this. So, so I think that would all be in your proposal. So that's fine.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, gentlemen.
Mayor,
Yes.
I just have a quick comment.
Sure.
Thank you for your presentation. This is not in regards to them, but since we're now asking for a proposal, and there's been three other companies that were brought to give presentations. And if we're going to entertain proposals, I would suggest that they all put together a proposal. I'm going to ask Shannon if you could also reach out to the other companies that were brought here before. So everyone puts a proposal and we can see what everyone's offering and how everyone works. Everyone's different, but just so we can educate ourselves and everyone gets an equal opportunity to present since they've already been brought here before. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you,
And
Councilman. Yes,
Mayor.
Councilman Ricardo
I
Pacheco.
have a quick question. Again, to the gentleman that were here before. I just have a couple of questions because of the cities that you've been working in. I have two questions. One is, after you've established and you worked in these cities, what is the crime like in regards to, marijuana issues? And two, what are we looking at in terms of revenue, maybe in cities that you've worked in or in general from companies in your industry? What kind of more or less revenue looking at for, say, one 10,000 square foot facility?
So I'll start with your first question, which was how has the legalization affected the crime rates in the cities that have gone forward with this? I think the best examples would be from Colorado, which is kind of the most mature legalized medical marijuana industry in the United States right now. And the effects have been positive. You can ask three different people what the effects of crime are of these things, and they'll tell you three different answers. But there's one correct answer, and it's that they've been reduced because it will reduce the number of illegal sales of marijuana. It reduces the demand of illegal sales of marijuana because people now have a lawful means to go obtain marijuana for their medicine. They've also released studies that it's reduced the abuse of prescription pills, which is a sweeping epidemic in many suburban neighborhoods and communities just like Baldwin Park, because marijuana is a non-opiate. And the most addictive and damaging narcotic in the United States today is opiates. Kids find it in their medicine cabinets. They realize heroin costs less than they stick a needle in their arm. And marijuana diverts that. So I think the answer's been positive on both. And from a revenue standpoint, Mr. Samaniego mentioned during his presentation that, to break it down, a 6% cultivation tax is pretty much what's been standard in a lot of cities, and that's not including the actual point-of-sale tax. So just in cultivation, if it's 18,000 square feet of cultivation, one conditional use permit under the state structure is 22,000 square feet. So let's use the 18,000 square foot model. That's about $607,000 roughly in tax revenue. You can guess per 18,000 square feet. So if somebody were to open, for example, a 100,000 square foot facility, you're talking about 6, 12, 18, 24, $3 million in tax revenue potentially. So it's substantial. It's absolutely substantial.
Thank you very much. So we're looking forward to the community outreach and getting input from the community as well. All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. All right. So at this point, we have no further presentations. We'll go ahead and go into the public communication. Anyone? Yes.
Just clarify,
Sure.
so you're looking forward to the community outreach. Just to be clear, didn't we just ask that they bring information to us before we do anything and make any decisions?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
Fine.
just
All right.
clarification purposes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this point, we'll open up the public communication.
Whew. Gotta wake up here. Ken Woods, I'm a concerned citizen. Let me state, I am all for this new credit card, debit card system. I'm for it. But I am against the collusion and the lack of disclosure of the actual costs. First, these two suits come up here, and they say 9 cents a swipe. That's it. Well, I didn't go for that one, so I went to the finance director, and she said 9 cents a swipe, $15 one-time service charge. Being a long-time businessman and knowing there's no free lunch, I pulled up your staff report, which I have here. Here's what it says. 9 cents a swipe for every $150 $100 setup charge, $15 a month service charge, and that does not include the rent of the machines. It's going to cost the city about $1,000 a month. Or it could possibly cost $5,600 a month, which is about $67,000 a year. That's according to your staff report. That's the real story. So, now, Mayor, at the last meeting, you stated that you were in favor of Ed Hernandez's daughter for this water position, and that the other lady who'd been in for 15 years was out of ideas, and we needed new people with new ideas. How long have you been in office, Mayor? Isn't that kind of calling the pot calling the kettle black? Also, I don't know if you heard, maybe you have, but there's a guy going around says he's our new police chief. Is this a ship house rumor or not? Thank you.
All right, moving on with public communication. Good evening.
Good evening, City Council members from Baldwin Park, residents. My name is Gabriel Ramirez, resident of El Monte. I'm going to speak on behalf of the selection of the chief. This is what I wrote, and I believe I sent an email to each and every one of the council members, and I have not been responded. And here this goes, and I have attached the articles. I come from a city of Almani where last year we had a police chief that we were going to be selecting. I'm going to read this right now, very, very short and clear, or maybe longer, but here it is. In February of the 25th of 2015, the city of El Monte, the mayor, selected a new police chief. He was going to appoint a police chief from San Bernardino Police Department, who was also a former city council member for city of Hemet, which his name is McBride. And it's something that the mayor in that time, what he did was of his own selection. And I'm not here to cause any, throw any dirt, but make it vet a process the right way. And we actually did a consulted that we spent $30,000 according that they made a right selection. Accordingly, it's not. The reason that he withdrew because he was in favor of the immigration of Arizona, as we all know, SB. So what I suggest, make it a fair process. If it's listen to the council members, listen to the residents. Even though you may not like it, some residents can bring something that, hey, you know what? They do a research. I do my research. I do my homework when it comes to new police chief. Obviously, we have. I'm sorry to say this, but we took your police chief. your police captain, David Reynoso, to El Monte. So but like I said, make this the right process. And it's not political or anything that may assume or maybe rub it to the wrong way. So that's all I have to say on this public comment. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello, City Council, Baldwin Park residents. Mayor, how many times do people have to tell you, you have this piece of paper, I'm pretty sure you got something pretty similar to it. You don't even know how to follow directions. It says here, roll call, innovation, pledge allegiance, roll call, report of closed session. And what do? Before the meeting's even an official meeting, you start chatting about what you guys did upstairs. Don't you follow anything right, or do you don't give a hoot? I know, stare me down, you'll never do that, Mayor. This police chief you guys are looking for, I should say you three, you should put that out for bid. That way we can get the best guy so you guys can fire him. How you like that one, huh? The gentleman over here that's hanging on to the job for a little bit, you need to tell your police officer, especially that one, that when somebody wants to hand something to the ladies over here, there's no crime or unconstitutional or any police thing that says we can't hand them people paperwork. You need to talk to him. That's our freedom of expression. We can hand it to any time. Doesn't matter who's talking. If the good Lord was talking, I guarantee you somebody would interrupt him. Now back to you, Mayor. This police chief you people are looking for, I hope, and I know I'm wishing awful hard, that there's some guy out there that wants to be a police chief, not maybe for Baldwin Park only, but for any city that's open, so he can come and sue you people. Because you don't, the way it looks to me, you're not going to even look. You already got somebody in line. So I'm telling the lawyer now, if the mayor doesn't follow directions or city council approved minutes, I'm going to have to talk to somebody further up that has more authority than he does. Last meeting, you blew us off in the financial part and the housing department. You have on these minutes here that you guys are going to get $30 and $50. There's nowhere on here that says you guys had those time. So why are you being paid? It's unconstitutional to get paid for doing nothing. I know, stare me down, Mayor. You're right. You should be fired for this. You know why? Because you don't care about procedure. You just do whatever in the hell you want to do. Hold on. Thank you.
All right, moving on with public communication.
Thomas Carey, former resident. I know it's been a while. In my absence the last couple months, Mr. Pacheco is working in South El Monte for people that have business with the city. Rather than attack Cruz Baca over there, you should be addressing him, moonlighting over there with people that have city business here. I can't think of much more of a conflict of interest than that. As for Cruz Baca and her family issues, it seems that when you were elected, you got some campaign contributions from her family, which I found to be, that shouldn't be. It's causing a rift there. They already have enough problems. As for the chief of police, why aren't you just hiring within the ranks? Isn't that the way it should normally be done? After all, the officers that have been here a long time already know where the problem areas are here in Baldwin Park. Why are you going to bring in somebody from, where is it, Inglewood? What does he know about Baldwin Park? Unless, of course, he's going to be your puppet so that you can manipulate and control him, because after all, you hire him, you got him over a barrel, and you can fire him just as readily. Because we know the majority is almost always Monica, Mayor Lozano, and Pacheco. That's not a democracy when you vote the same way. Either you want it or you don't, but you always vote the same way. And if they disagree, you're all over them like a wet blanket. Democracy, you're all supposed to work together for the betterment of these people. I don't live here. As for the consultants, didn't you three vote to raise it from $10,000 to over $100,000? What are you equivalent about $25,000 for? You spend money like it's going out of style for consultants for every damn thing else, but they want $25,000? Rather than give the land away like you did to Rome over here, why don't you build that park over in that parking ride by that big red building? That parking lot's practically useless. Why don't you put the damn park there? You're probably figuring out what land can we take from some business owner? How can we twist this system? This system here is as corrupt as anything. And I know if he's saying I'm the chief of police at Baldwin Park, it's more than likely he's going to be the one that's here. And I'm just waiting to see when that's going to happen. You're not going to admit that you've talked about it, But why could he be going around saying, I'm the chief of police of Baldwin Park, if he didn't already have some inside information on that? Something's wrong somewhere, and the truth has a way of coming out. Oh, boy, here we go. Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
John Rios, resident. In the past 10 years, how many chief of police have we had? 4? 3? We haven't had a chief of police retired from Baldwin Park. Why? Because he's not a puppet. Once you start putting a puppet up there, and if he doesn't follow your instructions, you kick him out. What happened to Lily? Mr. Pacheco didn't like her. Just kick her out. What happened to Mr. Taylor? He was a good chief. He had been here, 35 years? Just because he didn't want to follow your little instructions, you said, well, let's get rid of him. Let's bring my buddy. You know, that's one of the things that the residents of Baldwin Park, when you mentioned that they were going to go through the process of electing a chief of police, they were happy about it. But now that this came out, that you three are going to decide, they're not going to be happy about it. I don't even think by tomorrow and by Saturday, you won't hardly have anybody in the parade out there because they're going to be pissed off. Okay? One of the things you have to understand, we're the ones that are paying you. You have to listen to us. Not to Susan that you wanted to find out where that money went into. And right away, the three of you said, no, we don't want that. You can spend $25,000, but you can spend $125,000 on a consultant from Sid Masabi or somebody else. You guys are so crooked. I thought Mexico was bad, but you guys are really bad. You know, it's getting to the point, only got 15 minutes. It's getting to the point that it's a big joke. It's like the sign that those people brought over here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What this mayor does. Oh, let's take a picture. Let's take a picture. Gee.
All right, moving on with public communication. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Lozano.
Hey, good evening.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia, council members, city staff, and the community of Baldwin Park. My name is Daniel Levanos. I'm your city ambassador from One Legacy Donate Life. I'll make this quick because it's been a long night.
All right.
One Legacy is an OPO, organ procurement organization. We're the bridge that connects the patients to the transplant centers. One person can save 8 lives through organ donation and enhance the lives of 150 through tissue and cornea donation. I had a picture here for our float, but I have some cards here that maybe you can look at. But I'm here to unveil our 2017 Donate Life Rose Parade float. It's going to, where am I? Teammates in Life reflects the parade's theme, Echoes of Success, by reminding us that no one succeeds alone. We all thrive by working together and pulling in the same direction. Donors save the lives of grateful recipients and help families heal. And in the large community of registered donors that makes it possible to save thousands of lives across the country each year. The float will have 24 organ, eye, and tissue recipients. We'll have 60 fluorographs from donors who gave the gift of life. We'll also have 16 living donors who gave the gift of life also by giving a kidney or a lung or or half a liver. Also, I have an event. We have an event, a rose dedication, December 30th, 2016. I have an invitation here for the City of Baldwin Park civic leaders to come down and put a rose on our float personally. I need an RSVP by December 9th. Everything's in here with my contact information. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city staff, and the community of Baldwin Park for giving me this opportunity to announce what One Legacy's mission is: saving and healing lives through organ, eye, and tissue donation. Come first to families we serve and inspires the communities to donate life. Thank you very much and good evening.
Thank you, and thank you for One Legacy's job. Thank you. All right, you could just hand that over to our city, our deputy.
Mayor, can I just talk since he's up there? Real quickly, it's not as hard as it seems. I'm also a registered donor. All you have to do is make sure that when you go get your license or ID card, you just let them know that you are willing to be a donor, and they put a designation on your driver's license, and it makes it easy that in the event something should happen to you, that you are saving the life of another person. And so thank you for what you do. And so I encourage everyone to do it. Have that conversation with your family members beforehand. We don't want tragedy to occur, but when it does, have that conversation and let your family know if you're interested that that's what you want to do. You want to save some lives. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Alrighty.
Hi, good evening, Danny Damian.
Good evening.
Mayor, at the last council meeting, out of respect and professionalism, you should have allowed Margaret Clark and other candidates to address the council and let you all know why they should represent the San Gabriel Valley Water Quality Authority Board. But instead, it was obvious that you, along with Ricardo Pacheco and Monica Garcia, had already decided that you were going to vote for Valerie Munoz. Instead, you said, and I quote, "Maggie Clark has been there for many years, and I think it's an opportunity for us to select someone of a different generation that can represent the particular changes in demographics of the San Gabriel Valley." I will admit, Mayor, I do agree with you on this one. I do agree with you on this one thing, and that is that it's time for us to select a new generation to represent us, as opposed to someone who has been there for many years, like yourself, and has had the chance. I must say that 22 years as the mayor is way too long. It's time that we select a new mayor with a new vision and fresh ideas to move Baldwin Park forward, not to mention transparency. And you know, Mayor, I believe that deep down inside of you, you may still have some hope, but unfortunately you've allowed the greed and the 22 years of the same to get the best of you. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for council members Ricardo Pacheco and Monica Garcia, because in my opinion, they are just plain evil, vindictive, and they have no hope. And you know, Councilmember Monica Garcia, you're talking about spending $25,000 on a consultant to hire a very important position for the city. You know the dividedness that there is when it comes to the police department and our community residents. I hope you do, since you're an elected council member. And for you to play around with the idea that now you actually do care about spending $25,000 of our taxpayer money, who are you kidding, Monica? You know the reason why you're doing it. If you guys can give away hundreds of thousands of dollars of our taxpayer money to corporations such as AAE, Gentry Brothers, etc., then you guys can pay $25,000 so that it's transparent as to who's going to get the next position as the chief of police. So if you guys are trying to fool us, you're not. We know exactly what it is that you guys are doing. Don't try to pretend that now you care about the taxpayer money when in reality, you don't give a crap about any of us here or any of the residents of the city. So $25,000 to spend on selecting the new chief, I think that the residents, us the taxpayers, I think we'd agree. Would you guys agree that $25,000 is fair to spend? I think that would say yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving along with public communication.
Good evening, Greg Tuttle, business owner. Tonight, up in the special meeting, I had served Lozano, Pacheco, and Garcia with a lawsuit for actions that they did to me in Santa Barbara conference. Mr. Lozano seems to forget. I know that he says that he always tells everybody when his brothers do evil things and drugs-related things, but I came to one council meeting and had a police report in my hand about his brother being arrested for smoking crack over in Irwindale. He adamantly denied it, everything else. The truck that the kid, his brother, was smoking crack in was his own truck, which was disassembled by the Irwindale PD over in Glendora. So there's things you don't say to the people. Then, Monica, this is really good. You don't want to spend $25,000, but you pissed away $52,000 for a restraining order to try to get me to shut up. All three of you, Pacheco, Lozano, and you. And you know what the judge told you? You're not normal. And I have that on a document. You're not a normal person. And all the times that you go to the emergency rooms on drug-related stuff, I think you guys ought to be drug tested because you guys got some serious issue, especially you. Now, let's talk about the chief process. Well, I was there when we did the Hatzel process. What a joke. 3 or 4 guys came in. I talked to the people outside while they're waiting to get interviewed. They said, thank God we didn't get picked. And then when you did pick, it was a lieutenant, not even a captain. You picked because she was going to be your great puppet of the year. She got you in major lawsuits with the police department on promotions because she followed Marlene Garcia's stuff. And then when Captain Taylor was out on vacation, that's when you promoted her to chief. So you waited till Captain Taylor was out of the country before you even promoted her. We know what you're going to do. We know this guy's going around to all the events saying, I'm the next police chief. And we got a lot of dirt on him. And a lot of the residents are going to hear about it. Through wherever we got to do it, the media, whatever, we're going to put it out there. So welcome to the big leagues, guys. Then Pacheco signs over in, I have your employment thing over here from South El Monte, Pacheco. We got some big discrepancies here. You said you don't work. And you're sitting here saying you made $10,000 a year. But your 700 form shows you only work for American Solar, but that was only for 1 year. The rest of the years, your wife made the money, not you. You got some issues with the FPPC because they got filed all these papers. You got to explain them to them, big boy.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, moving along with public communication. Is Margarita coming up? Okay. Thank you.
Margarita Vargas. First, I'm just going to thank you to turning on the heater. And I don't mean the heat over there, but the heat out there because you were freezing. And the other thing is that, you know, I'm here listening to all these comments and not appropriate words, you know, but I don't see and hear, and you approve it, the rules of decorum for the people that come to speak and for yourself. So it's supposed to be printed on the agenda. And that thing that you said that the freedom of speech, I mean, they do it at West Covina. They have it there. And nobody taxed a member, one council member. They had to direct themselves to the whole city council. And they have the rules, you know, printed in the agenda. And everybody needs to fill up a card so they know the order that they're going to be and say what they're going to speak about it. So I don't know why I can do this here. And luckily, we don't have any kids here, you know, any students, because this will be a bad example for them. So I just want the lawyer to look into that and see what we can do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good evening. All right, moving on with public communication. If not, I'm going to go ahead and close the public communication. At this point, we're going to go into consent calendars. We have items 1 through 7. Council members wishing to pull any item?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to pull 6 and 7.
6 and 7, all righty. Council members wishing to pull any others? If not, at this point, I will make a motion to pull, move for consent calendar items 1 through 5. That is my motion. Second by, who second?
It doesn't matter.
Well,
Either one of us.
Oh. Okay, well,
Either one of us. We said it at the same time.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll say Councilmember Cruz Baca. All right. So at this point, we're going to item number 6 by Councilmember Cruz Baca, the approval of parcel map number 1427.
Yes, I have some questions about this. I would like to know, first of all, what are the specifics? I looked at the staff report and it doesn't exactly say what are the specifics of what this land use is going to be used for. Is it going to be commercial? And also, I do believe that we should wait until the LA Fitness is complete before we commit to a commercial building or commercial that's going to be used, because we don't know what that's going to be like. Will there be restaurants? Will there be retail? Will there be whatever is there? I would really like for us to take a good look at this and bring it back at another date so that we have all these questions answered by the who is purchasing the property? That's my other question. Who is the developer or the developers that are purchasing this, that are requesting for the ordinance to be changed? And so I have a lot of questions about this, and I feel very uncomfortable only because how do we know what to put there if LA Fitness hasn't been finished yet? And I would like to see that first before we proceed with another piece of property. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Anyone else have any other questions?
Well, I kind of share her concerns just a little bit, because I know that we're in the process of completing the LA Fitness, and it is my understanding, of course, we're bringing some retail, and at this point, we're trying to merge those properties for retail use. And it would I would like that information as well. You know, who's purchasing it, and what are their intent? Like, I would like to know, what do they plan to put there? Restaurant? I mean, just to give us a heads up how they plan to utilize that parcel. So I would also like to have it brought back with some more information, if we may.
I have some of those answers
okay,
now. I can answer some of those questions. So the developer is BP Triangle LLC, and they're a Delaware liability company. But they have submitted plans to the planning department to build a gas station and a 7-Eleven convenience store. So that's the information that I have. So.
Would the ordinance change include a gas station? Or, you know, my question is that originally, and I remember when we had the groundbreaking for LA Fitness, and I met with, I believe, the gentleman from Bristol, I think it's called, Shannon, is it Bristol? I met with the two gentlemen, and they had, which was very nice, what they had intended there was to bring in a chipotle, something like a coffee bean, and so forth. So
yeah, those developments are going to be on the LA Fitness parcel, so they are coming.
So this parcel is going where exactly?
This is directly across the street along Garvey, in front of the LA Fitness development.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah. Yes, and you know, it's have we okayed to bring in a gas station? Is that going to be part of what's going to be?
I want to defer to Amy.
I would have to double check. I'm not exactly positive. Sorry, Sam. That something's been.
I'm sorry. May I interrupt for a second?
City.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to hear, but Councilmember Pacheco is on the phone, and I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but I was having a hard time following the conversation.
All right, sorry about that. All right, go ahead. Continue.
I'm sorry. Again, I don't mean to be rude, but I couldn't hear with the conversation happening next to me. Okay. Can we repeat what we were saying? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It looks like something's been conceptually submitted to us. However, I don't believe anything has actually been formally submitted. What this is just to consolidate all the properties. Anything over and above this, there's actually no ordinance change that I'm aware of. Still has to go through our process.
Could we bring it back? I would really like to bring it back to have some more of our, you know, I'm not saying we don't need a gas station. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. I would just like to see some more information and maybe some of the renderings or whatever that they have planned for that particular and some type of a commitment so that they don't say one thing, we do the change, the ordinance change, and then all of a sudden we've got something else there. So
once I have something formally submitted, I'll be more than happy to bring it back.
Okay, could we wait until Amy has it and then we'll bring it back? I'd like to make a motion that we bring it back when Amy has all the information.
All right, so
Mr. Gutierrez, just real quickly, and they already own the parcel?
Yes.
They already free and clear they own the parcel, correct?
Because the parcel has met the conditions of approval and it's substantially compliant with the tentative map, we cannot deny it, and I'd prefer not to prolong it too long. So,
Could we bring it back for the beginning of December, for the first meeting in December? Is
Would that cause any problems?
will
I'm
that?
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Susan.
No, go
yeah,
ahead.
we can.
Could we please? Well, if we are up against the deadline and the owner of the property is up against the deadline, then let's see what we can work with, and also have. I'm sure that by the time it goes to planning or whatever, and yourself and Amy will make sure that whatever he's building there suits whatever's around there, and of course the residents that are around there. So I would like to bring it back to the beginning of December.
I think we might have to ask the city attorney. I think under state MAP Act law, you can only hold it over once. And I believe you can only deny this if you find that it doesn't comply with the MAP Act requirements.
Well, okay. So at this point, I don't want to delay anything because I mean they're moving that particular project pretty fast. Will it affect anything if we were to do that?
Well, I can't really say that because we don't know. They haven't really submitted anything, but I think what Amy can do is when they do submit something independent of this process, they can bring it back to you and then show you what that is at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Under the state law, it's difficult and it's not really proper for us to tie that project that they're doing to this MAP Act proposal.
Okay. All right.
So do you want to withdraw your motion?
I guess my hands are tied. I'd like to wait at least until the next council meeting so that we could have some more information and a better presentation. Maybe the owner could be here to tell us more or less what he would like. I would like that. My motion still stands. I mean, we can do it to the next council meeting in November, which is November the 19th, I think?
16th.
Or the 16th. Could we please have the owner come in and give us a little bit of a presentation?
We can ask, yeah.
We can.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a motion on the floor. Was there
I'll
a
go
second?
ahead.
There's a second.
Any objections? See none, so move. All right.
Okay.
That makes sense. All right. So at this point,
Thank you.
yes, item number 7 by Councilman Cruz Baca, approval to release funds allocated by the Office of the Traffic Safety, OTS, for the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program. Yes, Councilmember?
I just want to say thank you because I know that this was done through a grant, and I just wanted to bring that to the audience and to our residents' attention that this is being done through a grant. So thank you very much, and I make a motion that we pass it.
All right, I'll second. Any objections? See none, so move. All right, we don't have any public hearings. We'll go to item number 8, which is a consideration of the first reading and introduction of ordinance number 1391, repealing the ordinance number 1244 and reappealing section 30.05 of the chapter 30 of the Ballpark Municipal Code. Anyone have any questions on this there?
Yes, Mayor, I do. Well, not questions, just rather, I think we need time to think a little bit about this because what this is saying is that you want to move the elections and of course, we're going to have to eventually, but I think it would require an educational component here, some kind of campaign to educate our residents, our voters. What this item does is it moves the election to another year, and we need to first let our residents know what the process is like and what's required and give them time to acclimate because most of our residents are used to coming out to vote on odd years, and what's happening, this item will move it to even years, and as it is, I think our community struggles with voter turnout, and I'm not quite sure it will have the effect that's intended, which means more people coming out to vote, primarily because, again, they've been used to the odd years for so many years, number one, and number two, there is a benefit of not having any lines to vote, on even years. It gets a little bit more crowded and a lot more people, which I understand that, but maybe our voters may not come out to vote. Either way, I think we need to involve our residents in this process because this is a big issue. It's not something small. We can't change the elections on them without them knowing. So I'd like to just pull it aside and study it more so we can get the residents educated on what's going to happen with the election, why, and get a little bit of input just to get them involved. I don't want to move an election without having community involvement and the residents that vote for us know what's happening in advance before we move forward with this item. So I make a motion to just pull it aside so we can have a little bit of a study session in terms of what our turnout is and what we can do to run a campaign to educate our community before we do anything this drastic. Thank you, Mayor.
I second.
Okay, second. Any objections? Let me just say, this particular Chapter 30 or ordinance, I should say, was passed by the California Senate. So what they're basically doing is getting the vast majority of cities to move their actual elections at with the state itself, because obviously you get a lot more voters. Now, if you look at the votes that occur here in the city of Baldwin Park, we all know they're extremely low. But when it's a state involving the state assembly, everything else that goes with that, the state level, you get a larger turnout. And that's a very clear indicator in Baldwin Park, because I ran one time as the mayor of Baldwin Park years ago when they ran in the state assembly, and you had a lot more people that go out. And this is something that the state is going to literally mandate that the cities change over to. So I just want to let everyone know.
Mayor?
Yes, Vice Mayor Monica Garcia.
Oh, no, I did. It was
Councilmember Cruz Baca, sorry about that.
But the implementation doesn't have to go into effect until 2022. So I agree with Councilmember Rubio that I think, we're elected by the people. And I think that we need to get community input as well and sort of educate them so that they know we have no guarantees that they're going to come out because it's a state or an assembly election. I mean, we've worked really hard this time, even for a presidential election. And yes, let's put everything aside about what's going on between the candidates. But I mean, there's a lot of people that are saying they don't want to vote this year. So, so I think that we need to educate and get the word out so that we do have a guarantee that it will be done correctly or on the even years or whatever's mandated to us. So I agree with Councilmember Rubio. I'd like to put this decision off until we can educate the people.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. It was second. Any objections? Okay, one objection.
And can I just, for full disclosure, what this does, it only cuts my term. It cuts my term by a year. This proposal would allow me to be elected one more year without voter approval. So in essence, I'm taking a year away from my term. But again, to me, it's important that the residents know, because something like this is really major. If we change it without their knowledge, just a perception of us moving an election without them knowing just doesn't seem right to me. That, the residents are important. They elect us, and I think they need to know before we do anything this drastic. And I'm totally against it because I don't want to catch them off guard where they're expecting an election, they don't have it, and they're clueless as to why we're doing it and why it's happening. I think we need to let the residents know. That's really important to me. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, if I may just add that this actually adds a year to everybody's election. But let me just say, because I am speaking, Councilwoman, I'm voting for this because this does save money for the residents, and it also improves voter participation because we're not going to an election that has more voters in it. And it's also mandated by the state that I believe by 2020 we'll be doing, this will be implemented anyways. But we could, 2022, but we could do, approve this and do have the city clerk do also some voter outreach about the change that we have. So I would, I guess there was a motion made and a second.
Second. One objection by Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco.
Let's just make it clear what the motion is. The motion is to, I'm sorry.
Delay this one more week?
To move this to the
for the next, to bring it back as a study item. For me, it's not something we could just pass without any, community knowledge. And to be clear, yes, it does extend everyone's year, 1 year. So in essence, I would be cutting, full disclosure, my year 1, I would be cutting back 1 year. And I rather do it the right way than have our residents think that somehow we're trying to do something inappropriate. I think that they need to know before we even move forward with this. And you said that it might save money. The reality is that we used to conduct elections separate from the county. When we did move to the county, we ended up having those cost savings already. So whether we move it now or later, we still pay the same thing because we have to pay the county to do the election. So there is, at the moment, no cost savings. And yes, they did pass this, but the intent was to allow us to do that in 2022, I believe it was. By 2022, for the same reason, they understand it's not something you can do from one day to another. It takes time to educate our residents. It takes time for people to know. And as a matter of fact, the only requirement is that by 2018, we have a plan to move forward with it. Just a plan, not implementation. And then in 2022, then implementation. So there's still a lot of years to do this. I don't want to change it without the voters knowing and without voter approval. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor and also a second. One objection. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Rubio.
Yes.
Councilmember Baca.
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco. Mayor Pro Tem Monica Garcia.
No.
Mayor Manuel Lozano.
No. Okay, so the motion tonight, 3-2. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. The City of Baldwin Park, ordinance to adopt 1244 and repealing section 3005 of the Chapter 30 of the Baldwin Park Municipal Code, moving the date of the city's general municipal election from the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of odd-numbered years to the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of even-numbered years, beginning in November 2018. So that is my motion.
I'll second.
Any objections?
Yes.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Manuel Lozano.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Monica Garcia.
Yes.
Councilmember Cruz Baca.
No.
Councilmember Susan Rubio.
No.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco.
All right, the motion passes 3-2. All righty. Okay, so at this point, let's go over to the section that we have. Council comments. The first one, request for consideration by Councilmember Susan Rubio. So, Councilmember Susan Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, I wanted to discuss just consideration if we can add additional engineering consultants to the approved list of on-call engineering consultants. What's been happening to us lately is that we have one that does particular services, and there's a lot of times that we have deadlines, and at the time it comes to us, we have no choice but to go with this one company because there's a deadline. I would like to ensure that we have 2, maybe 3 on that approved list, because any good business would not pin themselves to just one vendor and then whatever quote we're given have to accept it because, once again, they're the only company that's approved. I would like to have 2 to 3 vendors approved, so if there's any deadline, we have the ability to ask 3 people to submit proposals. Then as a business, we can choose the ones with the lowest cost. At this moment, we have one vendor who just, I'm not, implying that it's, overcharging, but yes, when we have one vendor that gives us one proposal, we have absolutely no choice. And I think that's not good business. We wouldn't do it if we owned a business, so I don't think it's good for our city to just have that one person on the list. So please, I would like to encourage us to add maybe 1 more or 2 more so that never has to be an issue. It's been in the past, I believe, 3-4 council meetings where we're told we have to go with this person because we don't have any more time, the grants are running out, and then we have no choice. And I think it's really not to the best of the city's interest to just have one person. So I would like to open it up and select 2 more so we can have 3 proposals, and then we can go with the lowest bidder instead of having to go with the one we only have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So at this point, anyone have any input on this particular subject?
I'd like to make a motion.
Alrighty.
I'd like to make a motion that we consider putting 2 or 3 other firms on the list like we have with other departments so that we have a list of who to hire or who to bring in. And also, it's not, I want to make it very clear because in the past, I've been criticized for questioning a vendor or someone that comes in. It's not only, and I know I'm confusing the motion, but this is very important, is that it's not only the lowest bidder sometimes, it's who is the most qualified to do the work. And so to me, that's very important. They may not be the lowest bidder, but who is the most qualified to be able to do the work? So I would like to add that along with what Councilmember Rubio said about bringing in a 2 or 3 other vendors or consultants so we could choose from. And yes, it's not always the lowest bidder. It's who is most qualified. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I would object to... Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on. There's a motion on the floor. Second. Any objections?
I object.
Okay, 1 objection. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Susan Rubio.
Yes.
Councilmember Cruz Baca.
Yes.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Monica Garcia.
I'll object. I'd like to have more conversation. I thought that's what we were doing versus jumping into motions.
Mayor Manuel Lozano.
No. So at this point, the motion drops. So at this point, what were you suggesting, Vice?
I mean, I'd like to have more conversation. I think that Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco was going to make a.
Well, my point was that initially the on-call engineering contract was, I think it was, I don't know, 2 years back that we did a bid with a number of firms and all these, and we ended up with the current list that we have. So there was already a competitive process that was done, and those are on the on-call engineering consulting list, which I think it either ends next year or the year after. Then we would start again to do a new on-call list. And the reason you do an on-call list is that if you did stopped and did the proposals, it would then delay a lot of the projects because you'd have to stop and do the bidding process. But we've already done it beforehand, selected a list, and then we go off of that list that we work on, and that's how it's been. For example, the Civic Center project was one of the contractors that were on that list, and they got something upwards of $500,000 worth of work, and they did the Civic Center project. So it just makes the process quicker, and it's opposite of what I think Councilwoman Rubio says, and that's why I voted to just keep it as is. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, can I clarify something?
Yes.
You know, when you say there's a list, somehow it sounds like there's 3 to 4 people to choose from. There is no list. There's one person to choose from. So by allowing another 2 companies to be on that list, that's the whole point. It doesn't slow down the process. Instead of going out to bid like we do traditionally with other companies, you have these 3 on call. That means right away we call them, say, submit your proposal, and right away we go with the lowest of those 3 that submit a proposal. It doesn't slow down the process. And like I said, if I owned a business, I would not want to have one vendor that provides that one service. I would like to have 2 to 3 for it to be competitive. Why would we want to give just one company the exclusive right to give us whatever bid they want to give us? Having 2 or 3 would safeguard that we're not being overcharged. Again, I don't want to imply he is. However, it's just good practice to have competitive bids available if we wanted to. And so to clarify, there is no list. There's only one company for engineering services. And when we have deadlines, we have to go with that person, no matter if it's 100,000, 30,000, or 50,000, because that's the only engineering service on that list. So having several would really safeguard taxpayer money, so we don't have to go with someone that's too expensive. So just to clarify, there's only one person. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. All right, anyone else have
Mayor,
any? Yes,
I have a
Vice Mayor
question.
Monica Garcia.
When we have a project come before us, don't we normally select the engineer, Sam? My question is for you. When we have a project come before us, don't we normally select the company or the contractor that we are going to move forward with based on professional services or lowest bid or qualified contractors? Can you speak to that process?
Sure. For the engineering design services portion, we have a contract right now with infrastructure engineering. That they are a consultant. We're under contract with them for engineering design.
Sam, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you put your microphone up? Thank you so much.
We do have a current. The current contract we have is with 3 firms. We have an architectural design services firm. We have a building construction management firm, and for engineering services, we have an engineering firm.
So for each one of those areas, we have one firm that we work with.
Correct.
Okay. And so the way that we've done this business is we have approved those firms in the past.
Right.
Okay. So it's not like they just kind of came out of nowhere.
Right. A request for qualifications was flown and circulated, and these 3 firms were selected.
Okay.
And they were offered a contract.
And is that the process that we have followed at the city for a number of years, or is this, how long has that, kind of been part of the?
I can't speak for previous years, but this contract has been in place since 2014. It is scheduled to expire in June 2017.
And prior to that, who was a contractor?
I do not know. I'd have to check with staff.
Okay. So it sounds to me like the way that we have this set up is we have already approved contractors for each one of those services.
Right.
And So, without the historical context, it would be hard for me to know how long that's been in place, but it doesn't sound like this is something that we just came up with this year or even last year. So that satisfies, my questions.
Well, let me just speak to that. And you're right, that's been traditionally the way we do things. However, I don't want to go through the whole SOMA situation where we went out to bid. An engineering company did submit the lowest bid, and then it got pulled once from the agenda, and they didn't get the contract, even though that was the people that we selected. Then they were on the agenda 2 times, and then it was pulled a second time. So by the time it came to us, we were told, if we don't go with this company, the grant is going to run out, and we had no choice but to go with the approved engineering firm that we have. We only have that one engineer for that particular service. If we had 2 engineering firms for that particular service, even though the other contract was pulled, for example, Mr. Gutierrez can call these 2 and say, submit a proposal within that day or 2 days. You have 2 options. Who is the lowest from those 2 approved companies that we have? So yes, we do have 3 firms, let's just be clear. But all 3 do different services. So either one of them can just give us any bid, and we have no choice at the last minute but to accept that bid because we don't have anybody else that's approved. So once again, like as a business, why would you want to do that to our city where we're just having to accept whatever bid we get? So yes, it has worked in the past, but recently it has not. We've been twice, I believe, forced to accept that bid because we were out of time. And that's not how I want to make decisions in the city. So I would really encourage us to have options when we have last-minute items. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Ricardo Pacheco.
The information that Councilwoman Rubio is giving is inaccurate, and that SOMAS, during that project or the process you were talking about, that project, there was a change in scope. And because there was a change in scope, their bid was no longer valid, and then city staff at that point decided to split the scope of work because there was a change in the route or something of that particular project, and that's why they went. And in fact, the way they did do it did save the city a lot of money because there was a change in the scope. This on-call consulting, a bid that we did on about maybe 1 or 2 years ago, in a sense froze the rates for those engineers. For at least a couple of years. I mean, we're back at rates that are being held for about 2 years. So if you did it again today, in a sense, you'd probably get higher rates. You wouldn't be saving money. So the way we did it, it just holds until I think next year or the year after. So that's kind of, that's my understanding of the way the process works. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was very confusing.
It was Vice Mayor Monica Garcia. Sorry.
Thank you. So, Mayor, I wanted to also say that, a lot of what's happening here is that I do question the intentions of Councilmember Cruz Baca and Councilmember Susan Rubio and the environment that they've promoted here in this council chamber and all the negativity. And so there's a real trust issue on the integrity of why things are proposed. And it causes me to also question, where you're coming from and what your real intent is with these. And I know people in the audience are going to laugh because these are the people that you work with, that are they come and they do your dirty work. But that's one of the reasons, too, why I would question why we're changing things at this point in time. And I would feel most comfortable going with what we have done in the past, what has worked in the past. And so that's why I asked the questions of our director, our interim director. And so at this point, I would prefer that we just move forward like we have been, conducting, like the normal course of business, and just keep. My motion would be to keep this process as is and as it has been. That would be my motion.
All right, there's a motion by Vice Mayor.
Well, I need to address
Hold
that
on,
because
is there a second?
That was my item on the agenda, and I think I have the right to continue to address it. I put it on here for a reason. She just said, I question your intention. My intention is to save the taxpayer money when quotes come to us or proposals, and they're high. So there is no intention other than to have options. Any company, any business would have several vendors on the list, so they have options. There is no alternative intention here. And it always goes personal. Once again, I talk about what the issues are for the city, and it always becomes personal. I'm going to tell you, right now, Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco gave his explanation, and it was very confusing. Let's be clear. Shannon, our CEO, did a report for us. Every single person here got the report as to how that project came to be. The scope of work was not changed ever. That is incorrect. It was not changed, and if we need to clarify it, Shannon, do you mind clarifying? It was submitted by SOMAS. It was the exact scope that we needed. When it came to the council, Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco pulled it, and then it came again to the council for the second time. Councilmember Ricardo pulled it, and he said he needed information on it. By the time we needed to do this project, we were out of time for the grant. We were going to lose the grant. So guess what? Then we're told, sorry, we're out of time. We need to go with this approved engineering firm. And since we only have one, we ended up having to give him this over $100,000 worth of project, when in reality, SOMAS was the most qualified because they had already done that same project somewhere else. So there is no intention other than to save the taxpayer money. And by way of example, at the previous council meeting, there was an item there that came to us for $32,000. The initial proposal was for $80,000. I mean, after negotiating with this particular firm, it was brought down, but if we didn't have staff that's aggressive and it's really looking out for our tax dollars, we would have ended up paying $80,000. However, had we had two firms, we wouldn't be receiving an $80,000 quote. I'm sure we would have received a more reasonable quote because there's competition. So I'm going to ask that we don't make this personal. This is taxpayer money we're dealing with, and I really encourage us to have options instead of going with just one vendor. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, so at this point, there's a motion on the floor, and is there a second? Any objections?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Madam City Clerk, roll call, please. Thank you. And this is to move forward as is with the current.
Okay, there was a.
All right.
It was my motion.
It was motion by Vice Mayor Monica Garcia.
You start with Monica.
Mayor Pro Tem Monica Garcia.
Yes.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember Cruz Baca.
No.
Councilmember Susan Rubio.
No.
Mayor Manuel Lozano.
Yes, the motion passes 3-2. All right, so at this point, could we move
Mayor,
forward?
can I
Yes,
just
go
clarify
ahead.
the motion so people know? So the motion was by the three majority council members to leave AAE as the only sole engineering firm on call at this time to do all our work.
No,
Thank
that
you,
is not
Mayor.
correct. You're misinterpreting that. I believe you're misinterpreting that. It needs to be corrected.
No.
That it was
I think
not.
she's correct.
Mayor,
Yes,
let me
go ahead.
correct.
Go ahead.
There was a bid process that was done for an on-call engineer. I'm sorry. Excuse me, sir. Mayor, can you please?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm being
That's fine.
interrupted on this corner too many
No
times.
interruption, please. Thank you.
The individual is, we had an on-call engineering consulting that was brought on bid about 2 years ago. They did a bid process. They selected the qualified firms, and those are the firms we're using. So I know that, unfortunately, Councilwoman Rubio, I think, has a personal vendetta against certain contractors. They continually bring up their invoices, and those vendors have come here and said that they have done work for the work that they should. They show reports that they do, but the both of you have some alternative agenda that you want to do and continue to bring things up, and that's fine. We'll bring them up, and we'll bring the consulting firms up here to talk about the work that they do. Councilwoman Rubio came here and stated falsely that a number of contractors were here and were not doing work, and we have those contractors show up and talk about the work they did, the reports that they did. And so, I'm starting to become concerned about the hostile work environment that the both of you are bringing here with staff, having them dig up thousands of work and going back on invoices for here on end, and then you come and you're proven wrong. Your staff did a report that showed that all these invoices were paid and they were accurate. I have full confidence in our staff that they do the right thing, and I support them. I know you two don't, but I support our staff, and I think they do the right thing. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Councilman
Mayor.
Pacheco.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Cruz Baca.
First of all, I'd like to say that about false allegations up here on the dais. No one supports our staff more than I do, and I believe what the work ethic and the work that they do. It's unfortunate that you are not thinking out of the box, to think that in a good business sense, competition is extremely important when it comes to being able to get the right price and the quality work. There is nothing wrong with competition. There is nothing wrong with bringing in other engineering firms or other vendors. I have to question and ask, what do you have in it for them to have the commodity on the city? Thank you.
All right. At this point, could we move forward, please?
Just one more item.
Okay.
He says that they've provided all the reports. I'm sorry. We paid $28,000 for the vector control outreach. I've never gotten any information as to why we paid $28,000. I did investigate with their staff, and they did it all. So at this point, I still don't have a report why we paid $28,000. And to clarify, they're an engineering company, and yeah, we paid them $28,000 to do community outreach. That money should have gone to a professional company that does that particular work. So that is why I feel a little uncomfortable, because you're saying that they provided reports for everything. No, they have not. I've yet to see why we paid those $28,000 to a company that doesn't do community outreach. Thank you, Mayor.
I
know we're leaving this out, but again, you got the information. You're giving out misinformation again. They came here and gave the report. If you want them to do it again, we'll bring them out here again. They did work for that $28,000. End of story. I mean, you want to continue to bring it up, I'll bring them back out here to talk about what they did for that money. Second of all, you're the one that votes for all these contracts, and you turn around and then say the opposite. So I don't understand you, Susan. You should do your homework before you vote, and then make sure you vote the way your mind really sits. Unless somehow you get convinced otherwise, and now all of a sudden you're voting a different way. So I just have concerns about how you vote now. Mayor, let's move on.
To clarify,
okay.
Of course we all have the option to vote on things. But guess what? You hire someone to do work, and we have the option to change our mind as they provide work and as we see things either working or not working. If you're telling me that once I make a choice here, I'm not allowed to change my mind, I think that's inappropriate. And the reason I'm changing, not necessarily changing my mind, I don't mind them having work, but I think we need competition. So again, I'm allowed to change my mind if I think that our taxpayer dollars are not being utilized properly. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. So let's move on. Yes.
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
I just want to make one quick clarification. The on-call services contracts provides staff with some convenience, but that is meant to bypass the RFP process. So just because we have a contract with these three firms for particular services doesn't mean that it's an exclusive contract. So at staff's discretion, we can decide on a project-by-project basis to circulate an RFP for any particular project. So because some of these projects did have to be, and they were pushing deadlines, they were conveniently given into the on-call services. And it's not uncommon for cities to have engineering firms or architectural firms to be on-call.
Sam, just let me ask you one question, and I'm not putting you on the spot. Who makes the final decision?
That would be the Public Works Director.
But it doesn't come to council for a vote?
For the project?
Yes.
The engineering services contracts is limited to $120,000. So anything above that will come to council for approval.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on. The next one is a request for consideration by Councilman Cruz Baca. Go ahead.
Yes, and I put this on here before I met with Christy from Vasquez auditing firm yesterday.
Yes.
And had a very nice conversation with her in regards to the same things that I have been repeating for a long time. She was very clear that the audit committee meetings are very important in order for an auditor and also our staff to be able to not only let the committee know, but also the residents and the businesses on a quarterly basis as to where we are with the budgets. We used to have them, and it was very successful last year. But this year, with the change of the committee being all 5 council members, it's very difficult to get a schedule going so that we can even have meetings. And I understand that everybody's work schedules and so forth, but I have to express how important these audit committee meetings are. instead of having everyone in the dark by the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, this way we sort of plan ahead on a quarterly basis as to what each department has to do, or if there is any questions that arise from the different departments or from us as council members. I would like for us to either make a decision today. When I spoke to Christy, she said she was going to speak to Rose, and I don't know if she spoke to Rose Tam, but she said that it would be ideal if we could have an audit committee meeting at the beginning of December before we start approaching the year end, so that after they're doing their analysis right now, and I know that they've met with staff a lot, and they would like to have a meeting at the beginning of December. I would like to see if we can go back to the original or an ad hoc committee, so that when the 5 of us are not available for an audit committee meeting, that there can at least be 1 or 2 of us, along with City Treasurer Maria Contreras, and of course some of the residents and the business owners. So that I would like a motion so that we can move ahead with these audit committee meetings.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Well, yeah, I want to just add to that because, before, when we used to have the ad hoc committees, we used to meet quarterly, so it was very easy to see, where the financials were and give input and find out right away if there's any issues. We used to meet quarterly, on schedule, but now we haven't had a meeting in so long, and it does make it very difficult to see at the end of the year where we're going to be. So I used to be in the committee, and so is Cruz Baca, and I'm willing to give my spot for someone to join, but these meetings need to happen. So, Mayor, I make a motion to go back to an ad hoc, only because all of us are so busy and our schedules are, hard to coordinate. So I'll second the motion.
All right, there's a second. Yes.
So I thought we were supposed to be having discussion before we entertain motions. I thought that was the rule a couple of meetings ago. But I would like to just say that, can we just get a report from Rose on a quarterly basis and have a conversation here in council?
Why not?
Why is that so difficult? Okay.
Your microphone's not on.
To the department head.
So
certainly I can provide that quarterly report to the city council.
Yes, that would be nice. And then we can have a conversation as a council here in the council meeting. I mean, that's not a new concept.
One of the study sessions.
But excuse me, you're missing the whole point. When we had the audit committee meetings, and I know, Rose, you were there on many occasions, and going back to the Craig Grave days, also the chief would be there. We had residents. We had a lot of concerned, business owners as well that would come and give input as to what was happening with the credit card machines or credit card system, questions about how certain accounts were being handled. We ourselves would like to know what was happening with some of the grant monies and so forth coming in through the different departments. So, yes, I think it's fantastic for Rose and her staff to come and give us a quarterly, but we still need that community input, and our businesses as well. We need that input in order for us to move forward as a city and not just be the only people attending the meetings, or just come from up here, let everybody know what's going on without them being able to give some type of input.
Yeah, and just for the record, these meetings used to last 2 hours. Mayor Pro Tem Monica Garcia, you've complained often how long these meetings are. By average, and Rose is here to attest to that, they used to be 2 hours because there were discussions, and we would look at the books, and we would get community input. Even Margarita Vargas from the Water District would join us, and everyone just sort of was on the same page, and you didn't have to rush, and we could ask questions and have dialogue. It's just a good way of just keeping track on the finances. So I think it's important.
One of my concerns.
Hold on, Vice Mayor Monica Garcia.
I'm sorry.
Oh, did you want to?
Okay, just a quick comment is one of my concerns that I had about having both council members, Cruz Baca and Susan Rubio, on the committee was one of the things that I got back to me was you actually had your campaign manager, Greg Tuttle, sitting up here on the diocese and being like a third vote and giving directions. And that's what I got, complaints from residents that were out here, that how he ran the meetings and how he was making directions to both of you from over here. So that's why I've decided to bring it, to have the whole city council be on that committee, and we could just have a report from staff. And we're here. We have meetings every other week. If somebody has a comment about it, all these reports are online, and anybody could come here and make comments about these reports. So that that's my comment. I think we should just keep it as reports from our finance director, and we could make comments from this point, or agendize it as we can as council members to discuss a certain point, on the items. One of my concerns that I noticed was there was a bias on the recommendations that was coming out or targeted to certain council members, and I just think that was wrong. You guys put certain recommendations just to try to make an issue and use it politically, and I think that's wrong. So I prefer just come here to City Council. We can all hear the recommendations, and as a whole group, decide what direction to take. Thank you,
Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cruz Baca.
Oh, actually, I let him go.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
Okay,
Vice Mayor,
thank you.
and then we'll go to Mr. Cruz Baca.
Thank you, yes. And I also wanted to express, in addition to the concerns mentioned by Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco, I'm concerned that a lot of that discussion that took place was never relayed to this council and to the larger public. There were no minutes, there were no notes, there were no reports that were generated directly for this council. And so, you talk a big talk of transparency, but I didn't see it. And so that's why I also feel like all the smaller committees should just default to the city council so that we all are here present. We can ask questions, and it's recorded in the minutes. And as far as the comment about these meetings going on too long, when we're taking care of business of the city, then that's what we're here to do. Where I take issue is the just the ridiculously that happens here. And the silliness, the back and forth, the repeating myself, repeating, like putting yourself on a repeat with the same story, and all the rhetoric that takes place. That's the part where I feel like we need to be respectful of people's time, especially our city staff. But when we're taking up the city business, that's really what these meetings are for. That's the time that we need to, be dedicating to city business. And so that would be my recommendation, is to just have that report, bring it to us, let us have the conversation. We have the public here. There are minutes that are being taken. We can share that. And if need be, if we need a follow-up meeting, then we can take it to, a study session. That's
you want to make a motion?
Well, just real quickly, I'm willing to step down. Like I said, if anybody wants to be part of that, I don't need to be on it. I just want someone to be having these meetings. And again, you can take it or you can take it. I don't mind. But it's important. So I'm willing to forego my position. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor.
Thank you. At this point, Councilmember Cruz Baca made the motion. It was seconded by Councilmember Susan Rubio. Are there any objections?
Object.
We go on objection. Madam City Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Cruz Baca?
Yes.
This is to create the ad hoc committee.
Councilmember Susan Rubio?
Yes.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Monica Garcia?
No.
Mayor Manuel Lozano?
No, the motion fails 3-2. All right.
Mayor,
Yes.
there's one thing that I need to say. First of all, there were no decisions that were made. We're not allowed to make decisions when you have an ad hoc committee like that. So the fact that there are allegations that Mr. Tuttle was making decisions and giving his input. The only thing that Mr. Tuttle would bring up was the towing issue, which he's been bringing up for like 20 years. So that doesn't mean that we had to follow, because obviously we didn't, because nothing's been done about that, about correctly being able to keep track of what goes on. Now the business has died down, but before there was nothing done. So obviously whatever he said didn't really have much effect in what the meetings were about. Secondly, I remember going back to Craig Graves when he would be sitting there and he would give reports about what was happening with the audit committee meeting. And Christy from Vasquez herself yesterday suggested that the audit committee meetings would only help them do their work because they wouldn't have to do as much groundwork as they're doing now in order to catch up. So there's some reservation, and I'd like to know what it is that I'm willing to give up my spot if two of you will show up to these audit committee meetings, because I think it's very important that we have transparency here and that we question some of the things that are going on. And these questions, whether I say it from the dais or whether I say it in an ad hoc committee, everyone knows that I ask a lot of questions, and I do it specifically because I am spending taxpayer money, and that is very important to me, to know where that money's going. So I'm very sorry, and I want it for the record that they are refusing to have the audit committee meetings.
And I want to, for the record, let all the staff members here, I trust you. And we obviously do know that, we've been above board on everything. We've not like other cities where you have the finance person who's taken money. Pasadena had an auditor that was overbilling and a multitude of things, and so on and so forth. So I want to let you know, that's why you're hired here, because if we want to do it on our own, then that means one of you will probably not be sitting there. And I have the utmost trust in you and have been, and I know that the leadership among you is phenomenal. So I want to thank you. At this point, the transparency will continue to be all 5 members, as opposed to having individuals set up their own meeting and bringing in their campaign managers to be a part of it. So at this point, we'll go ahead and leave it as is. At this point, item number 2, which is discussion and consideration of directing staff to provide a status report at the first council meeting every month on all public works projects. Councilmember Cruz Baca.
Well, I think that after your speech, Mayor, you should be agreeable to having staff give a status report at the beginning of every month,
which they do,
so that way we know exactly where the grants are, where we are as far as the different projects that we're working on. What is the status? Are we 50% done? Are we 90% done? Are we 100% done? And how much money? I would really like to see a report on a monthly basis on the first council meeting of every month, so that they can give a report as to what's happening with some of our public works projects. I know we get staff reports, and I know that Monica Garcia is talking to the CEO while I'm trying to talk here. And I think that we should really take a good look at what's going on. Sometimes things show up on the agenda that I myself personally had no clue what was going on, because there has not been a status report. There are projects that are being worked on by our engineering firm that we've hired, and I have no clue as to what they're doing until I ask for the invoices. So I would really like to have a status report, and I think you will agree with me, Mayor, because of what you just said a little while ago, every first meeting of the month, so that we have a status report as to what's going on with our projects.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Ricardo Pacheco.
Again, I just think, I look at this, your political grandstanding, you're just trying to make issues here. Our staff provides a report every week. I mean, we get the communications, council communications. I mean, if you don't read that, all that information comes, all the staff reports, all the different directors here, Public Works comes here. I mean, I'm reading one right now that talks about even traffic signal installation. I mean, traffic signal may not be a big issue. It's not one of the big, juicy projects that we do, like doing a full park or something, but he gets a lot of detail in there about the different projects that we're working on, whether it's streets projects, sidewalk projects, all those things are reported here. So I think that it's a good idea. Now, both you and Councilwoman Rubio were criticizing one of the vendors for doing a project management listing that shows all the milestones or where everything's going to go from. But you guys, you don't want that either. I mean, staff is providing all that information on these reports. I'm looking at one right now, and they do it like I think it's every other week that I get that information. So I just think we already do this, so I don't want to duplicate what we already do, or I don't want you to come back next week and say, I asked for this status report when we're already doing them, and to say, oh yeah, I did it because I asked for it at the last meeting. I think it's wrong. So I don't know what your political grandstand is about, or what you tell all residents, but this is a staff report that is provided every week. I don't got to put it online and email it again, so the whole public knows the great job that our public works staff is doing. We could do that. Maybe you should put that online. Why don't we put all our projects online, let people know, give a percentage where we're at, so the public knows how great we're spending their tax dollars in our community. Thank you, Mayor.
But that's the point. I think that we're thinking council benefit, but I really think it should be community benefit. Not everyone's online digging through our pages, and everyone is at home listening to these council meetings. So this is not necessarily for our benefit, but I think it just would be nice for our residents to know on occasion what's being done. I mean, it has a positive effect. A lot of times, council members or cities are accused of not doing enough, and that would just be a good way to highlight some of the projects that we're working on. And I think that, it would just be good for them to know where their tax dollars are being spent. So once again, I think there's no harm in just bullet points, letting us know just what we're working on in the community. Again, for not our benefit, but for the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, I'd like to move on.
Mayor,
Yes,
I
Councilman?
just want to say one
Okay, go
thing,
ahead.
is that I'm tired of being accused of this being a political issue. Everyone knows, and I don't need to justify this, that my concern are the taxpayers and their money, and also our staff that works extremely hard to be able to come up with reports. I'm not asking them to do any more work. All I want to know is where are these grants and how much, only because I see money being spent through grants, but yet I do not know where these projects stand with certain engineering companies. That's all I'm asking. If not, then maybe we should do what Councilmember Pacheco said. We should bring the engineering firm in here once a month and let them tell us what they're doing.
All right, so at this point, I just want to say we have a big weekend. Obviously the annual parade that we had, the parade. Councilor Monica Garcia, got to give you credit for fighting and bringing it back. Of course, we all voted for it. Or did we all vote for it? Yes, we did. All right, so just want to thank everyone again. So looking forward, at this point, I will move to adjourn for the City Council meeting. Any objections? Seeing none, so move. Viva Baldwin Park.
Chicago won.
What? Oh, good. Awesome.
8
Thank
to
you.
6.
Right on.